2, 1. We're live. Hello, everybody. This is Philo, and with me, as always, is Mahaden. And
Hello.
this is the same debate that we have been reviewing between Qaiser Ahmed Raja and Harris Sultan. So we have met quite an enrolled on this debate. We have covered Harris's opening statement. Now we are gonna today we are gonna hopefully finish Qaiser Ahmed Raja's opening statement. We were probably about 15 minutes into Qaiser's opening statement, something like that, probably about 13 minutes or so. So we're gonna see if we can cover the whole opening statement by Qaiser today. Before we go there, I would like to make a few corrections that probably a few inaccuracies that were made by me in one of the last streams, probably. I think Mahadin, you left before. Anyways, first of all, let me go to Mahadin. Let him introduce and say whatever he wants to say. Then I'll make the corrections. Hello, Mahadin.
Hey. How you doing? Yeah, Philo. No. I've got. I'm pretty sure I have plenty to say when we get into the meat of it. So let's just go into it. If you want to make a correction, go ahead.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
only minor correction that I had was I think last time in last stream, once you left, myself and Kali Pulao, we were having a discussion regarding some of the things that I went to one of the streams of one of the muftis that we talked about, I think. And there I made an inaccurate statement about a factual statement, inaccurate factual statement about the half life of one of the radioactive elements, basically, and that is potassium. So I said something like potassium has a half life of 50 million years or something like that. And later on, I came to know that the half life of potassium is 1.2 billion years, right?
Right.
You know what is a half life, right? So half many atoms of an element decay in that longer period, basically, right? So they
Mm.
are randomly decaying, but that's how they assess the age of Earth and all those things, basically, right? So it's something like carbon dating, but there are different methods of doing radiometric dating, basically. So I just wanted to clarify that thing. All right, now let's get directly into the meat of our discussion.
Okay.
Let's
Yeah.
try to go as quickly as possible. You all probably can see this screen, and let's run it and see what our honorable Qaiser Ahmed Raja Sahab has to say.
Standard है, objective standard है
Sure.
जिसकी रोशनी में वो हमें रखे. Morality is objective, therefore claims pertaining to moral truths exist. Moral claims हम करते हैं. अगर ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी ना हो तो हम मोरल क्लेम कर ही नहीं सकते हैं क्योंकि वो जाती ओपिनियन में आ जाएगी. इस बेस पे हारिस सुल्तान के पास इस डिबेट में दो ही ऑप्शंस हैं. नंबर एक ये है कि वो हमें कोई अपना ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टैंडर्ड एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी का आज दिखाएं कि जिसकी रोशनी में वो कहते हैं कि इस्लाम गलत, फलां गलत, फलां गलत, क्रिश्चियनिटी, हिंदुइज्म सबको ये कहते हैं, सीता जी को ये लोग गालियां देते हैं, राम साहब की ये गुस्ताखियां करते हैं, ईसा अलैहिस्सलाम, जीसस सब की गुस्ताखियां करते हैं. तो अगर कोई आपके पास कोई स्टैंडर्ड है जिसकी रोशनी में आप इन सबको गलत कहते हैं तो हमें आज वो दिखाएं. अगर नहीं है तो फिर आप मान जाएं कि ये सिर्फ आपकी जाती ओपिनियन है. जो एथियस्ट की भी एक हो कोई जरूरी नहीं है. कोई और एथियस्ट हारिस सुल्तान से डिसएग्री कर सकता है चीजों पे.
All right. So the point Martin Kasser is trying to make here is that Harris doesn't have an objective standard of morality, right? So he can't judge what is good and what is bad, basically, right? So he can't, based on his personal opinion, he can't criticize, Islamic morality or Hindu morality or whatever you may have, right? So that's the point he's trying to make.
Okay.
And yeah, let's move forward and see if we can.
ये दो ही ऑप्शंस हैं. या जब बताएं कि आपकी जाती आराम है या आप ये बताएं कि आपके पास ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टैंडर्ड है क्या.
So
मोरालिटी इज ग्राउंडेड.
he's saying so it's kind of sounds like he's making a false dichotomy here, or at least making a dichotomy here, that you have only two options, whether it's your personal opinion or you have an objective standard. And to me it appears like a false dichotomy, and maybe there is no objective standard in behind somebody's morality, but one can come through reason, through, even if it's happens to be a subjective morality, one can come to a certain moral precepts based on one's personal reasoning and different other methods, maybe philosophical, methods, maybe deontology is one of those, or virtue ethics, or whatever you may have, right?
Yeah. I'm just wondering now whether he made this particular comment, off the last slide that he made, in which he said Islam has the best morality. I don't think you need to have objective morality. I think we covered this in the last stream. You can have zero morality. You can be a complete nihilist and address and assess Islam's moral inconsistencies and so on. So if the Islamic God is presented to be a particular type of moral, compassionate being, you could make an argument, how is this compassionate, and force Qaiser to defend a particular, let's say, a law or a tenet or a principle or a behavior that the Islamic religion prescribes or proscribes, and say, hey, look, Islam says X, Y, Z. This is not reconcilable with a compassionate, merciful being. How do you explain this? And he will be forced to explain it. And you don't need to be, and you do not need to be a moral objectivist to do that. So that's one way you can talk about Islam. So if he's connecting it back to that point, saying, Harris, you cannot nag your finger at Islamic morality because you have no morality. Well, that's wrong. The second part, the second way Qaiser might be making this argument is just to say that, well, in general, if Harris wants to actually say something is wrong, it has to be defended in a way where he can argue that it is objectively wrong, not subjectively wrong. And therefore, if it's subjectively wrong, it's merely an opinion. And if you look at the slides, it says, the first bullet point says, there is no reason to be good as mostly the powerful oppresses the weak. That standalone is maybe factually at least not as accurate as it sounds.
Yeah, it sounds like a little bit weak, as he says, powerful oppresses the weak. I think this argument itself is weak.
Yeah. Because if you look at the West, there are plenty of very, 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 very strong, powerful, robust social democracies, such as Norway, Denmark, Finland, Scandinavian states, in which
Scandinavians are there.
It's the safeguards in protecting human rights, employment rights, in terms of domestic rights for people to prevent domestic violence and so on. Policing is very, very strong, and
even in Japan, it is pretty strong, by the way, right?
We don't. It is true that people can still exploit those systems, but it's an oversimplistic way of describing it. Why would you say there is no reason? Because mostly that requires empirical, very, very strong empirical data to demonstrate that. From nation to nation, the vast majority, something like this, from nation to nation, vast majority of states, vast majority of people are subjugated by oppressive structures and so on. And that might open a can of worms to talk about institutional oppression and so on. But, and you might need to then look at demographics, you might need to look at sociological data, you might need to look at criminological data. You might need to look at get political philosophy involved, get political scientists involved, and there's so much information out there contradicting that statement that it's not simple. It's too oversimplistic to describe it like that. What I would recommend, if anybody's watching, is read a book by Steven Pinker. That is Steven Pinker. He's a Harvard psychologist. I think he might have retired now. I'm not sure. And he's written a book called Enlightenment Now. It's Enlightenment Now, where he shows, in fact, that the world has been progressively getting better, and the individual has been over time has been erected above the community, erected above the state, erected above powerful groups, not perfectly, but significantly, to the point where we're living in a much better world today. And he uses empirical data to substantiate these points. It's a massive tour de force, going from, it's like a 600-page book or something explaining all this. So it would be, yeah, there you go. It's on. That's a brilliant, book, by the way. Although it has been critiqued a little bit, the main thesis that is defending stands. And no, it doesn't look like powerful groups always are oppressing the minority. It seems as though the minority has been significantly improving over time, and the people's welfare rights, children's rights, workers' rights, women's rights, gay rights, transgender rights, rights of racial minorities have been improving over time. Poverty has been decreasing over time across the world. The health for people have been improving. You have welfare states that extend public free healthcare to the public, so that everybody has access. So many things. I can't go into all of it now. It's
Right.
very, very data rich. Yeah.
Just one very cheap factoid I want to put in there. The amount of things that you put in there should suffice, but just one little factoid, and this is a very interesting factoid, by the way. It is said, and I read this study somewhere. I don't know how true it is. If true, it is said that those Mughals of the 16th century or the 17th century, these rulers were eating kind of food that now today's middle class people are eating. So their standard, all the standards have risen way too far. The
Yeah.
human index and all those things have risen up way far than what they were like in 16th century or 17th century.
Yeah.
So there's a case to be made that this statement is pretty hollow, by the way. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's too oversimplistic, in the sense that he can always defend that thesis by showing that even today there are, whilst the underclass, whilst the lower classes, whilst the lower minorities have improved significantly, the rich have also improved significantly. You can talk about wealth inequality and somehow stretch it and make that case that still powerful groups, well, okay, but it's over.
You can always bring America and subjugating Afghanistan and then these Middle Eastern countries and the China oppressing there's always a case to be made. But do you see that as a larger picture, it is really that bad? I mean, you might argue to a certain extent. You might make a case in that sense somehow, but you'll have to really, do a mental gymnastics to come up with that kind of a hypothesis, in a sense. So that's what I think. But yeah, I mean, you can make a case that there is a certain kind of economical hegemony that is going on, and probably Americas are doing that kind of an hegemony. But
what I would say, it's the way it's phrased is so oversimplistic. It's like a Daniel Dennett, a philosopher called Daniel Dennett, might call it, what did he call it now? A thingamajig or something. I forgot now. He had a phrase to describe these sort of tautological simplistic statements that ring truth to it, no matter what happens, and it's almost all unfalsifiable. Stuff like, when you're happy, you are happy. Or, when you're on time, you're on time. Right. Like, they're true, obviously, and his statement, I forgot what it is called now, Daniel Dennett. I'll have to get that.
Let me try to find out.
Yeah.
Daniel.
Deepity, I found it. Deepity.
Oh yeah, Deepity. Right.
Deepity. So deepities are basically just very, very obviously true statements that have no sense of intelligibility behind it, in the sense that it's not a profound statement. It's just a obvious statement that everybody can say, yeah, that's true, without really conveying any deep meaning. But it creates, there you go. Yep, I can see it.
So I'll read the first thing.
Go for it.
Yeah, deepity is a term employed by Daniel Dennett in his 2009 speech to the American Atheists Conference, coined by the teenage daughter of one of his friends. The term refers to a statement that is apparently profound, but actually asserts a triviality on one level and something meaningless on another. Just
Yeah.
again, this is what we are talking about. Kaiser's first point.
Yeah.
Generally, a
Yeah. I
debate
mean,
has two meanings: one that is true but trivial, another one that sounds profound but essentially false or meaningless and would be earth-shattering if true.
yeah,
So, yeah,
exactly. I mean, you can always say statements like, "But the powerful, the rich oppresses the weak." It's so vague that you can always make the case that it's true. But what it does is when you don't read stuff like Enlightenment Now by Steven Pinker, it leaves out the big picture. The big picture is that in actuality, the world has been progressing. The weak has been the weak people that we portray as weak minorities have gained increasing strength, and it's barely the case that we are oppressed in any deep sense. So in fact, saying something like people are oppressed just hides and overlooks the progress and development and achievements and attainments that we've gained. And it's trivially true whilst ignoring the huge wealth of information that really gives it the nuance. And that's it. I would say that Kaiser's statement is unnuanced, oversimplistic, unnuanced deepity. And
yeah,
empirical data,
in some sense, it's probably ignorant of him, in a sense, I would say, or
yeah,
maybe even if you want to go to that extreme, slight bit dishonest, I would say.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, if you wanna say anything more on that, I think we can.
No, no, I think let's
Yeah,
proceed further
yeah,
on.
in God and there is no reason. I mean, look, there is no reason. हम जब कहते हैं कि morality को हम God में ground करते हैं तो उसकी वजह क्या है? देखें, किसी इंसान के पास अच्छा होने की वजह नहीं है, इसलिए कि दुनिया में हमें नजर ये आता है कि जो जालिम इंसान है वो मजलूम को सप्रेस करके रखता है, उसको ऑप्रेस करके रखता है, उसका फायदा होता है। ताकतवर आदमी अगर कमजोर आदमी के पैसे छीन ले तो उससे उसका फायदा होता है। Therefore उसके पास कोई वजह नहीं है कि वो एक moral.
So the point he's trying to make here is that a powerful person has no reason to be moral, because he can steal somebody else, weaker person's money, or do whatever, and he can just do those things, and nobody should stop him because there's no moral that he's adhering to, basically, right? So that is kind of like
right. Let me just say something on that then. The existence of morality doesn't require people to follow it.
Yeah,
So
there is an odd problem, basically. You can have the moral truths, but you
yeah,
need a lot to follow them. And where are you getting those odds from, basically, is the
yeah,
question. He's gonna
yeah,
use this, he's gonna
yeah,
use
yeah.
it as well, probably later on, I think.
Also, the existence of like an all-vigilant, all-seeing eye, let's say, who can police and enforce and create deterrence, and I think that's the psychological force that Kaiser is trying to make. That at least on a theistic framework, there is this super intelligent being watching all our actions. It will create deterrence. It will create conformity. It will create more well-behaved citizens, so that we don't engage in uncivil, antisocial behavior, and so on. That has nothing to do with philosophy. That is more to do with creating pragmatic motivations for people to follow particular rules, but it doesn't show the objectivity of morality. In order to solve the objectivity of morality, you need to make a philosophical case of why, explain it through rationality and logic, solve David Hume's is-ought dichotomy, and so on.
Right.
Yeah, by threatening somebody, you don't suddenly solve Hume's problem. If I put a gun to your head, right, you've not solved the is-ought problem. That's just, it creates obedience in you, yes, but it's not solved the philosophical issue. It's just threatened you. And furthermore, we can debunk Kaiser's argument here that people, without a powerful agent overlooking you, that people will become selfish, self-interested, reckless.
Right.
Sorry, you're going to say something?
Yeah. I just wanted to touch upon this point, probably just briefly, if you want. We already touched about it. I think we did discuss that in our last stream, that is-ought problem is unsolvable, pretty much, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So this is, no matter whether you are a theist or an atheist or whatever brand of religion you adhere to, this is an insurmountable mountain that you just cannot ever cross, pretty much, in a sense, right?
Yeah, I think so. And creating a threat from a god does not solve it.
Right.
Yeah, and this is bears out in reality. I mean, in the universe right now, in our planet right now, in theistic states, there are people still committing rapes, people still committing murders. Some Muslims are not proper Muslims; they're not praying. They believe in God, and they don't necessarily. Some Muslims drink alcohol, some Muslims eat pork, they fornicate, commit adultery. Obviously, we don't see this um, strong obedience to alleged God's morals that he has dictated. Through mere diktat, it's not created this subservient population who completely adheres to these things. And the empirical data also supports that in the sense that some of the most atheistic populations in the world, comprising of millions of people who with no conscious belief in God, they don't believe that there's this police officer watching them all the time in their most uninhibited, when they're hiding away, nobody can see them. And in these states, for example, like in Scandinavian states, it's when you do a demographic population for population comparison with other states per capita, comparing like for like, and not comparing it in a very methodological way. I think somebody called Phil Zuckerman, a sociologist, Phil Zuckerman, has done this. He's got a paper out on it, Phil Zuckerman. And he does this and he shows, for example, atheistic populations do better in lowering crime. They do better in improving education. Healthcare is better. Theft is low. Murder is very low. The populations are very, very well behaved. Neighborly behavior is achieved. And there's many reasons for this.
One more thing that is, sorry, Mahadin, I'm gonna steal your time and steal your. Do you want to finish your thought or should?
No, carry on. You can
One more
interrupt
thing I
me.
want to point out was not only, not only the regular people over there have a nice life, but even the inmates over there are treated very nicely over there. So they might
Yeah.
be murderers or whoever, but these are what humane societies are, right? Not that
Yeah.
someone you disagree with or who committed a blasphemy or something, you just go for their necks basically, right? So
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of rich sociological data and literature demonstrating that in fact, take God out the picture, and these societies still flourish, and they have brilliant statistics, some of the best. And when you make a per capita comparison, for example, a religious state with similar levels of wealth, similar levels of population, similar levels of resources, and you compare it to these states, the atheistic states fare better. Even within these atheistic states, Phil Zuckerman shows, for example, many of the atheistic societies within, let's say, Norway, which is vast majority of the people, compared to the religious societies, they fare very well. And if anything, it goes the other way, they're better. And therefore, we don't see this complete collapse of moral behavior without God being this all-seeing police officer watching us over the shoulder and so on. And there's many reasons for this. And just very quickly to explain why. First of all, evolution. There's something called kin selection and reciprocal altruism that has facilitated the gene for altruistic behavior, right? So it doesn't seem to be the case that God necessarily adds to that. It's especially when these states have developed technologies and infrastructure, God falls out of the picture. In fact, Phil Zuckerman actually argues that in very, 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 very poor states, God might act as a motivator to reduce crime and so on. God therefore might be this.
You can argue in a sense that God probably was a requirement, not a requirement, but was a more helpful hypothesis in, say, 7th century Arabia or probably 1st century Levant and all those places, right? But now,
Exactly.
increasingly, as the societies are getting better, their reasoning and resources are getting better and better. The requirement for something like that, a cosmic deity, is reducing further and further, basically.
Yeah, and this also goes back to the Enlightenment Now book by Steven Pinker. He also shows that whilst religion has been declining and states are becoming more secular, progress has been made in all fronts: charity, welfare, minority rights, women's rights, animal welfare, even the number of people who die from natural disasters, police response times, put number of police on the road, on the streets, imprisonment, prisoners' rights, how animals are tended to in factory farms. Things have been slowly improving. Theft has been reducing. Murder has been reduced. Murder has never been lower today than ever in history, human history. So when you go back in human history, where these theistic and polytheistic beliefs were rich and in vogue, the murder rate was higher, and you can find this out by looking at fossils and the remains of dead. And we can find out the murder. They kind of figure it out through statistics and so on. The murder rate was probably much higher when you look at the people who are buried and so on compared to and so we don't see this correlation. We see we see negative correlation of crime and secularity. So and that so some of it is inbuilt in our biology. Reciprocal altruism, if anybody wants to read about it, kin selection. You can show it through game theory as well. Game theory, like prisoner's dilemma, you can show that as a cost-benefit ratio, as a cost-benefit analysis, it actually works out better to be reciprocal in your altruism. Compassionate. Right, so there's something called gene algorithms, and you can show through computation and computer simulation that populations that spread the genetics for compassionate behavior survive and thrive better than populations that are not altruistic. In other words, cooperative strategies are selected by natural selection because it helps the individual and the group, right? And you can show this through mathematics and game theory. So there's plenty of evidence suggesting that. And the final thing I'd say is that some of the evidence actually shows that if you have a threat of punishment in order to deter you, right? And that punishment is extremely high in terms of the consequences. So hellfire seems to be the highest conceivable version of torture that you can ever think of, right? If it is far-fetched into the future, the deterrence effect of that punishment does not factor in as a force to govern or influence your behavior in the short term.
Right.
In other words, long-term punishments far into the future are ineffective, and you can show this by lots of stuff. Like many experiments have been conducted on this. Where if a punishment,
I think I remember one of the experiments that was done on I think I'm not quite sure where this experiment was conducted. Probably UK or some other place that. That the thought of getting caught was higher than the punishment meted out, basically, right?
So
it didn't matter whether the punishment was for 10 months or 2 years or 10 years, but the thought of getting caught out was the main deterrent for these criminals not to behave immorally or in a wrong way in whatever sense, right? So this study was probably conducted, I don't remember, probably 10, 20 years back, or has been conducted for many times probably. But
that is supportive of what I'm saying, but slightly different in the sense that it's more to do with being caught rather than the length of the punishment. Whereas what I'm saying from some of the studies I've seen is that whether or not you're caught, or the length of the punishment, if being caught is not immediate, but rather it's far into the future, it doesn't have that significant effect.
Right. Sorry, in that case, I digress from the main point.
You might be right, though. I mean, these studies are complicated, and I can't obviously. I'm not up to date with the literature right now, but there's plenty of studies showing that the best type of punishment is the most effective when it's there's a likelihood of being caught, and it's in the short term. You are likely to be caught very soon, or when I say soon, in the next 6 months or a year. If it's in 20 years or 30 years, for some reason people seem to
probably not going to care as much, right? Far in the future, probably.
Irrespective of how dangerous the punishment. And one of the things why people smoke as well, they've explained smoking as that as well. Even though you have a high likelihood of getting cancer. A lot of people would still engage in smoking because that cancer is likely to happen when you're 70 or 60, mainly, statistically speaking. And so when you're 20 or 30 years old, you're not really thinking about it. Somebody can tell you that you're very likely to get cancer, and you'll still engage in it, right? On the other hand, if it's around the corner, that's different. People genuinely do take precautions at that point. So there seems to be a lot of, in terms of psychology and psychological behavior and how people change behavior based on threats. It seems as though the threat being, however dangerous the threat, if it's far into the future, then it's unlikely to affect you that much.
Right. Okay, let's move on, Madan, on to our next point then.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
अगर कोई आदमी ये कहे, जो कि एथियस्ट ये कहते हैं कि नहीं, मोरल जिंदगी वो इसलिए गुजारता है कि वो अगर उसके साथ भी कोई ऐसा कर सकता है, तो ये मोरालिटी नहीं होती, ये एक यूटिलिटी है। ये तो सिर्फ एक अपना फायदा है कि मैं किसी का फायदा इसलिए करूं कि मेरा अपना फायदा हो जाए। हालांकि हकीकत ये है कि मोरालिटी में इंसान अपना नुकसान करके भी किसी का फायदा करने को तैयार हो जाता है, क्योंकि अगर आप
So the point he's trying to make is that morality is that somebody is willing to take a punch for somebody else, basically, not that something do good for others and then it's kind of a reward system. Basically, you do good and then you get some benefits for that as well. Basically, it's like, yeah.
मैं दूसरे की मदद इसलिए करूंगा, दूसरे पे जुल्म इसलिए करूंगा कि मेरा अपना फायदा।
Oh, is he saying that that's how morality works for people?
Right. I mean, this is what he's saying, that it's probably that's how it's working basically for people, but that's not true morality. He's saying basically. Yeah,
but okay, so he's got the same problem though, right? Because he's got a model of morality, a celestial jurisdiction in which there is a enforcer, commander, and punisher who commands through a threat of significant violence, permanent, and eternal violence. Right?
Yeah, he's shoved that thing under the carpet right now. Basically, it's not out there. It's hidden. Basically, of course, his morality is going back to that divine being and the threat basically behind it, threat or reward. Right? Basically, I mean, if you do good in this life, you're gonna be rewarded. Basically, it's the same principle that he's objecting to, basically.
Yeah. I mean, if he wants to forward God as a model for morality, and here's the thing: God doesn't really add anything in terms of add anything moral then in his case, because he's pretty much conceding that, look, atheists are just going to be moral because it benefits them or rewards them or it avoids punishment, etc. So therefore, here's God, who is the savior here, who will give you actual moral behavior, right? But what is God adding to that? Because then the theists will have to do the same thing, right? Theists will have to not act morally good because of hellfire, not act morally good because of reward. Rather, the theist has to act morally good for the sake of morality. But God only adds that reinforcement. But he's saying, he's conceding, you can't act like that through a reinforcement because it won't be moral behavior. It would be selfish, pragmatic, utilitarian behavior. In order to act morally good, you have to just act for the moral principle for its own sake. Yeah, but then you're in the same boat as the atheist. We can detect the moral principle, right? But somebody can not follow it, right? But if you have a deterrence from God, then you are conceding, Qaiser, that that's not moral. So how does God add anything extra here other than you think it ontologically makes it objective, which we kind of discussed extensively in the past stream that it doesn't,
Right.
So I'm not sure what Qaiser is trying to do with that, because it seems flawed.
Right, exactly. Okay, let's
अगर अपना फायदा ही आपका म्यार है, तो अगर आप किसी पे जुल्म करके अपना फायदा कर सकते हैं तो आप जरूर करेंगे। अगर आप शहर के सबसे ताकतवर आदमी बन जाते हैं, अनटचेबल हो जाते हैं, कोई आपको डर ही नहीं रहता कि मुझे कोई बदला लेगा, तो फिर आप जो मर्जी करें, because you want to achieve whatever you call goodness for yourself, और वो आपकी अपनी human flourishing है। तो इसलिए
So it is again the same point that we have talked again and again about. He's saying that if morality is what is flourishing for you, basically, then you can do whatever you want, whatever supports your. It's kind of what do you call that? Rational egoism, basically, is what he's
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
You are a rational
He's completely divorced from all the literature on this. Moral behavior can be seen amongst children, for example, where children would give their toys to others in distress when there's no reward, coming to them, for example. Two children would, for example, if commanded by teacher to, let's say, act in a harassing or menacing way to another child, children would use their own moral intuitions and compassion and recognize that I should not follow the teacher, irrespective of the reward. Right? So you can see these very, very minimal stirrings of morality from a very young age. And the twin studies, psychological literature on twin studies, for example, show that empathy is actually a genetic component. And you can, twin studies meaning that there are two identical twins raised in different environments. So it controls for the biological. It controls for the biology here. We have two genetic identical copies of genes in two different people, right? But one is raised in a really bad society. Let's say one is raised in a very good society, and this helps figure out how much of our personality is determined by our genes versus our environment. And we see significant, like 50% of our similarities are in empathy are found.
In their moral makeup, basically, in a sense.
Yeah, in their genetic makeup. Yeah, in their genetic makeup, because the twins act very, very similarly with regards to empathy.
I mean, what I mean to say is in their moral leanings, in a sense, basically, or ethical leanings, in a sense, as kids, basically.
Yeah.
They show empathetic behavior of the same kind, in a sense.
Of the same kind, right. And it shows that there's a genetic component to empathy, in which case people act good, irrespective of benefits, rewards. It just happens through something called mirror neurons. Mirror neurons enables us to, it's part of our brains and so on. It enables us to feel the pain of others. So when we see someone else suffering, for example, the mirror neurons mirrors their pain in our own body. And that enables us to empathize. That's why it's called empathy, so that we can put ourselves in the shoes of the third person and recognize this is suffering and we want to stop it. And moral behavior has also been seen in many animals as well. For example, mice. Mice would, when they know, for example, that if the mice will go and take food off this contraption, if the mice know that taking food off the contraption will cause an electrical shock to another mice, they will not do it.
Stop doing that.
Yeah. So nobody's saying that we're absolutely moral, of course not, but we have the blueprint, the DNA, the fundamentals, physiologically hardwired, most likely through evolution.
That's widely distributed across all the within the animal kingdom, pretty much, in a sense, to a lesser or larger degree. You can go on and on about the differences between those two, but there is some basic component of it found within the whole animal kingdom, in a sense.
Absolutely. And the vast majority of people are like that. They're altruistic to some extent. They're not completely altruistic. There is eventually, there'll be situations where you'll be selfish, and there are moments where you're more selfish than others, but you're also very, very altruistic. You have, in other words, the physiological hardware to be primarily altruistic, primarily compassionate and moral most of the time. Sometimes you might forgo it because you have that cruelty aspect to you as well in certain circumstances. But tapping into our moral energies is widely distributed through our genetics. And by the way, psychological egoism actually has been also studied in experiments. They're small studies, so that I can't generalize it as a massive study here to generalize it to the population, but there's been many experiments conducted to see whether people act in a very, very egotistical way, where they rationally try and enhance their self-interests. And this is called psychological egoism, which is distinguishable from ethical egoism. Ethical egoism is the normative theory that one should act selfishly. Psychological egoism is the scientific theory that people are egoists. And the studies show that people are not egoists. You can find money thrown around on the floor, and most people pick it up and take it to the right authority, take it to the right groups, the bank, the police, and most people won't keep it. Sometimes some people would, but most people don't. And furthermore, one more thing. This is why we have the word for sociopaths and psychopaths, right? Because they tend to be abnormalities, right? They tend to be genuinely selfish people who can't feel the pain of others. They lack maybe the physiological brain structures that everyone else shares, preventing normal moral behavior.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
हम ये कहते हैं, हमारे पास एविडेंस मौजूद है कि अगर हम खुदा की जात को निकाल देते हैं तो किसी आदमी के पास कोई वजह नहीं है कि वो अच्छा हो। इमैनुअल कांट ने इसको बड़े जबरदस्त तरीके से एक्सप्लेन किया कि जो क्राइम है उसका फायदा होता है। जो
Again, I mean, this is like a blanket statement here. He's just making a blanket statement that if you remove God, then there is no reason to behave morally for anybody. I mean, this is just, I think we have refuted it quite a few times within.
Yeah, Phil Zuckerman study. Yeah, Peter, Steven Pinker, even Peter Singer's The Expanding Moral Circle. That's another book. Anybody wants to read into that expanding moral circle, where that over time. And it's consistent and correlates with secular democratic states. The moral circle has expanded to include what previously would have been outgroup members, right? So previously, historically, people lived in geographically isolated tribes, and there was in-group, out-group rivalries. The in-group members were bestowed the virtues of very, very moral behavior. The out-group members were dehumanized and viewed as pests and were treated in a very, very dehumanizing way. On the other hand, now, today, that moral circle of what we call the in-group has expanded to the extent that it contains heterogeneous, differentiated groups of different factions and ideologies, but all under one banner, who are bestowed with and extended the virtue of being viewed as moral beings, protected by human rights and so on. Like African Americans were once upon a time treated badly. Today, they're part of the expanding moral circle. And Peter Singer shows this, that through anthropological data, through sociological data, and so on, that over time, and it correlates with secular democracies, the moral circle has expanded to include different groups of people. It's not perfect. It's not perfect by any means, but it has expanded, and there's no increase in God belief. There's a decrease in God belief. So he's completely empirically wrong.
Right.
जस्टिस है उसका फायदा नहीं होता। मीनिंग जो मैंने मिसाल आगे दी है कि जब मैं ये किसी आदमी के पैसे अगर मैं छीनूं तो मेरा फायदा हो रहा है, लेकिन अगर हम जस्टिस के प्रोसेस को इन्वोक करेंगे, मुझे अदालत में जाना पड़ेगा, तो मुझे पैसे भी वापस करने पड़ेंगे, सजा भी मिलेगी, यानी कि जस्टिस मेरा नुकसान कर रही है। लेकिन इसके बावजूद हम दुनिया में अदल चाहते हैं। अगर हम दुनिया में अदल चाहते हैं और जो मोरालिटी की बेस्ट फॉर्म है वो जस्टिस की सूरत नहीं आती है, तो इसका मतलब ये है कि फिर हमें एक ऐसे जहां की जरूरत है जहां पे एक ऐसी अदालत हो जो इस दुनिया में किए गए जालिम को वहां पे उसका हिसाब दे। उस अदालत के लिए जरूरी है कि एक ऐसा आदिल हो कि वो जिसके पास पूरी की पूरी इंफॉर्मेशन हो, वो ओमनिशेंट हो, और वो अपनी जो भी उसने अदल किया है, जो उसने फैसला दिया है, उसको एग्जीक्यूट।
So basically, his point is that whatever all these things he listed, there needs to be a judge, a cosmic judge, who's gonna judge all these things, basically moral behaviors, and who's gonna judge those moral behaviors, basically. Otherwise, this is all meaningless, pretty much, right? Yeah. I think we already talked about that. Pretty much in
basically, if you need judgment, punishment, reward to enforce or coerce or instill moral behavior in order to get people to act well, is that a moral reason? Is that morally motivated, or is that a pragmatic reason? He's debunking himself. He shot himself in the foot, right? If you need God to reinforce good behavior and prevent bad behavior because there's threats and because there's rewards, that's not moral behavior. That's like a transaction. If I donate, if I go to a businessman and I give him all my money, I give him 1 million, knowing that tomorrow he's going to give me 10 million back, right? That's what's that? Would you call that moral behavior, or is that a business transaction? Is that like a loan, like a loan that I'm giving, and he's giving me money back on interest, right? Nobody would describe that as moral behavior. So, yeah, exactly. So
it's a deal, basically. It's a deal that it's a give and take in a sense. Basically, it's a deal. Yeah.
Exactly. So under the Islamic framework, if you are, let's say, paying zakat or sadaqah if you're doing good to other people, but you're doing it. And by the way, this is socially reinforced in this way, where imams and preachers would say, do this, you will get lots of deeds, good deeds. It's the same thing. If you go out then and then feed the poor man on the street, and then you say, pray for me, right? Then it's like a deal. It's like would you do that without that incentive? Because the person who does that without that incentive, when that means nothing to them, and he does it anyway, he doesn't want anybody else to find out, he doesn't care, he does it at his own risk, he has a tremendous loss of effort, resources, when he helps this old person on the street. He's the one acting morally, because he's caring about others without wanting any reward to himself. Whereas if you just give your resources to him, knowing that you're going to get X, Y, Z in the future, if that's your mentality, then you're no different from the businessman who's going to get millions back the next day. It's just a transaction. It's a very pragmatic, selfish way of acting.
Right.
करने पे कादिर हो, यानी कि omnipotent हो. ये सारी की सारी जो खुदाई सिफात हैं, therefore अगर आप खुदा को निकाल देते हैं इक्वेशन से, तो किसी के पास कोई रीजन ही नहीं है मॉरल होने की. आप खुदा को बीच में से निकाल के देख लें कि आप अपनी जाती तौर पे तो कह देंगे कि ठीक है मैं किसी का फायदा इसलिए करूंगा कि मेरा फायदा होगा, लेकिन आप डूबते हुए बच्चे को क्यों बचाएंगे? आप इसमें क्या फायदा हो रहा है? आप कहेंगे कि ठीक है मैं किसी का फायदा इसलिए करूंगा कि मेरा फायदा होगा, लेकिन आप डूबते हुए बच्चे को क्यों बचाएंगे? आप इसमें क्या फायदा हो रहा है?
I mean, this is the same point he's just going over and over again. Basically, why would you save a drowning kid? Basically, I mean, if it's not benefit to you, why would you save a drowning kid? Basically, and yeah,
he needs to explain the increasement of welfare states that does virtually that. Aid, universal aid, charity that has expanded. Nordic states that have a welfare charitable state that extends these sort of things. And he has to engage with the literature created by, documented by Steven Pinker, Peter Singer, Jonathan Hyde, and so on, to explain, and Phil Zuckerman, how people act morally, in self-harming ways to help other people without any God belief. That is decreasing, and millions and millions of people are doing this. So he's completely wrong. And like I said, reciprocal altruism, kin selection shows that, and twin studies shows that the genetics and the DNA for moral behavior is in our blueprint. And people actually do jump into the water to save people from near-death experiences. Without any need for any reward, or without any police officer putting a gun to their head. That I would call it moral behavior. And if people are doing it just for God, then how is he? He needs to conceptually and philosophically explain.
One argument that refutes him itself is anybody, whether it's a believer or a non-believer, if that person or he or she sees a drowning kid without thinking about any consequences, probably he or she is going to jump in basically to save that kid. That shows that person who's even a theist is not thinking for a reward. It's just his core instincts to dive out, jump in. And that's exactly same with an atheist person as well. The core instinct kicks in, and that person jumps in to save, whether the whatever the consequences may be, basically at that point.
I'm
saying it's not a person who's just calculating all the things. Okay, what if I do this? How many rewards I'm gonna get? Whether I'm gonna clear my path to Jannah or whatever, right? That's not how it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen instinctively. He or she is gonna see it, and then that something is gonna kick in, whether it's gonna pass through your rational faculties or not, but. The most likely it's gonna be an instinct that's gonna force you, and that supports that hypothesis. It's somehow genetically built into our DNA.
Absolutely. There's so much evidence for that. We know that's the case. We know that empathy is a biological phenomena, which can be short-circuited and or twisted in certain very, very desperate situations, or through social conditioning, or through social constructs, or through situations that are life or death. Sometimes we do become very more, selfish and so on. But so the blueprints for cruelty is also in us, as is the blueprint for morality. But the moral blueprint is a stronger force in general that doesn't get offsetted most of the time for most people. And the aberrations, we call them sociopaths and psychopaths. And we know this due to game theory. We know this due to natural selection and reciprocal altruism, kin selection. And we know this through twin studies, animal studies, our neurophysiology, mirror neurons, children who have not been socially, conditioned to be moral, but prior to, even if they're conditioned to some extent, they override their conditioning to do the moral thing in certain circumstances. It's just wrong. There's too much wealth of empirical data, and he doesn't even bring it up. And that is the shocking thing. What is he doing there? He's just making assertions. Does he have any literature, any data? Because if I was his professor, his paper will not get a pass.
It's a zero all the way. Yeah.
Yeah, his paper doesn't get.
It's a zero all the way.
Yeah. But
right.
we have a comment.
We have a comment. Sorry,
Yeah.
Madam. You want to finish your thought?
No. I'm having too much fun today.
I'm just. Salman is here. I think I'm seeing him after a long time. Salman, I think you are coming on the stream after a long time. Just want to read his comment, basically. You're talking all these big names: Steven Pinker, Peter Singer, Jonathan Haidt, but you are giving too much credit to Qaiser Bhai. He tries to avoid any conflicting literature to his own views.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm sure that's the case, Salman. Yeah, what we're going to do, but people like us, we need to point it out. I'm sure the audience has some. I'm not assuming nobody's heard of these names, but we still have a responsibility to point these people out, and so that people can go and read it themselves.
I think there's a plethora of literature out there to read about these problems and how are these handled out there. And there's quite a bit of literature that he could have pointed out, at least to make if he wants to make his case clear, at least deal with these stalwarts, at least who have talked about these issues in pretty much detail, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just until you deal with them, your case is pretty much a hollow case in a sense.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So right. Someone made another comment. Unfortunately, he has found a community to market his half-baked ideas. No one who is a fan of his fact checks him or tries to see the other side. Yeah, it's a known problem, I guess. Well, I've not solved that problem. I don't think anybody has. How are we going to do? It's confirmation bias, right? And yeah.
All right, let's take Salman's last comment here, and then Salman will open the stream to talk to you for a bit, but we'll try to finish this first, right? So maybe 1.5 hours mark, Madin, shall we take Salman if
he wants to come on? I don't mind. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Most welcome.
Let's try to finish this. Let's speed up a little bit more, right? What's the last comment? Let me read. Doing good, bhai. Have you guys gotten to the part where he mentions Kant? I think he have misinterpreted Kant as well, saying his morality was based on God or something like that. Yes, I think we already went through that part. I think he's misrepresenting Kant, that Kantian philosophy is or deontology is based on you require God to be the basis of deontology. I think he's markedly wrong there. I think he needs to prove his case pretty strongly, and he's used. I don't know if he's ignorant or he's misleading. I'll give him the benefit of doubt and say that he's probably ignorant of he's probably superficially read this literature, hasn't gone deeper into the nitty-gritties of it all, right? So if he's thinking that only it can be based on God, he's over there.
Yeah. I'll comment on that when we get to that part. I think I'll save that for later. Yeah.
All right. Let's move.
आप क्यों, और मैं आगे मिसालें दूंगा कि चूंकि एथियस्ट इन चीजों पर यकीन रखते हैं, देयरफॉर जो उन्होंने दुनिया में मजालिम किए हैं वो उनको जस्टिफाई करते हैं। एंड इफ देयर इज नो गुड, देयर आर नो ऑब्जेक्टिव मॉरल ट्रूथ्स। कोई मॉरल ट्रूथ नहीं है अगर खुदा की जात नहीं है। तो जाती ओपिनियंस में आ जाता है, मेरा और आपसे डिसएग्री क्यों हो सकता है? मैं आपसे क्यों डिसएग्री करूंगा? अगर डिसएग्री करूंगा तो मैं आपसे, यानी कि डिसएग्रीमेंट की बुनियाद ही खत्म हो जाती है ऑन द बेसिस कि ठीक है वो आपका ओपिनियन है, ये मेरा ओपिनियन है, बात खत्म हो गई। ना जंग करने की जरूरत है, ना लड़ाई करने की जरूरत है, ना गरीब के लिए खड़े होने की जरूरत है, ना जज की जरूरत है, ना पुलिस की जरूरत है, क्योंकि हर इंसान की अपनी जाती ओपिनियन है। सो दिस इज,
I mean, this is again markedly wrong. We have already spoken about it, but I just want to throw it out. What he's saying, that if there's no God, then it's only your opinion versus my opinion. Then why do we need judges? Why do we need police? Why do we need all these rules and systems and all those things? It's just your opinion versus my opinion. Why do we need any rules and regulations, basically?
is a philosophical evidence कि morality को सिर्फ आप खुदा से,
You wanna say
No,
something?
no, no. I think we've said a lot about that.
Yeah, I think we have already said about
Yeah.
वहीं ग्राउंड कर सकते हैं। मैंने सिर्फ इमैनुअल कांट का हवाला दिया है। देयर इज अ चेन ऑफ फिलोसोफर्स जो इस चीज को कंफर्म करते हैं, एविडेंस की बेस पे करते हैं कि मोरालिटी को आप खुदा की जात में ग्राउंड कर सकते हैं। छोटे छोटे बच्चों पे साइंटिफिक एक्सपेरिमेंट किए गए हैं कि वो,
so he's not now talked about Kant right now, okay? What Salman was asking, right? So he's saying that morality can be grounded on God. That's what there's a tons and tons of philosophers who agree to that point, and he also took the name of Kant, basically. So I'm not quite sure that if he said that morality can only be grounded on God, or he said morality can be grounded on God. So these are two different statements. If he has said that morality can be grounded on God, that's perfectly fine. I don't think there's anything wrong in it. But if he says that morality can only be grounded on God, as per Kant, then he's wrong, I think, right? So let's listen to it.
एविडेंस की बेस पे करते हैं कि मोरालिटी को आप खुदा की जात में ग्राउंड कर सकते हैं। छोटे छोटे बच्चों पे साइंटिफिक एक्सपेरिमेंट कंफर्म करते हैं। इमैनुअल कांट का हवाला दिया है। देयर इज अ चेन ऑफ फिलोसोफर्स जो इस चीज को कंफर्म करते हैं, एविडेंस की बेस पे करते हैं कि मोरालिटी को आप खुदा की जात में ग्राउंड कर सकते हैं। छोटे छोटे बच्चों पे साइंटिफिक एक्सपेरिमेट किए
गए हैं। Yeah, but this statement doesn't make any sense. He says morality can be grounded on God. Okay, fine. Let's say you can ground your morality on God, but others who don't believe in God can also ground their morality on other things. Basically, Kant said morality can be ground on the basic nature of reason, basically, right? So why do you have to? I mean, you can do it both ways. From
Well, the thing is, I disagree with the first statement that morality can be grounded on God. Divine command theory has been debunked resoundingly by the philosophy community. So when he speaks about the philosophy community, he has to be referring to academic philosophers throughout different countries and so on. And divine command theory has pretty much considered weak source. There's been updated versions of divine command theory called modified divine command theory by somebody called William Alston, someone called Robert Adams as well. They've defended it and so on. But there's another philosopher, I think I've shared a paper with you privately, Philo, who's also talked about that at length. I mean, we can make that paper available. We've talked about Plato's dilemma before in a past stream, and trying to ground moral principles on God leads to Plato's dilemma. And nobody's been able to solve that so far, despite the modifications and defenses to Plato, to divine command theory. So far, the concession, well, not the concession, but so far the defect is that if you say a good God is something that makes, let's say, justice good, then you're left with trying to define what good means, and good ends up being a featureless property. It becomes a blank. What is good? It's unintelligible, and it leads back into the arbitrary problem. So God becomes this. The reason morality should, the reason charity is good, for example, being charitable is good, is because God grounds it. Where is it grounded in his, let's say, his goodness? And there you go. You've got the paper there by Jeremy Coons. Brilliant. So anybody wants to read that, I recommend you read that. And he's also, Jeremy Coons, if you Google Jeremy Coons on YouTube, he speaks to somebody called Alex Malpass, who is another philosopher. He's no longer an academic, but he does YouTube videos. He's a 1-hour discussion about this issue, and it's very, very good. Qaiser, if you're watching this, you need to see this, because really, really strong theistic philosopher William Lane Craig have been pulling their hair out trying to really circumvent arguments by people like Kuhns. And Kuhns show that if you try to say the reason why charity is good is because it's grounded on God's goodness, what is God's goodness? Yeah, is charity good because charity is good in itself, or is it because God is good? And if you say it's because God is good, and then charity is not good in and of itself. It needs God's goodness to become good. But what is God's goodness? And that's where they're stuck. They have no idea what it is. Yeah.
How do you come to know even? That's a problem, right?
Because when I say charity is good, it makes sense.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's a problem in itself. How do you know what is good? Basically, how do you know God is good? Basically, in a sense.
Well, that's another problem. That's an epistemological problem. Like knowledge. How do you know God is good and not bad? Exactly when we're doing Plato's dilemma, there's two aspects to it. I would say there's an epistemological problem. How do you know God is good, other than evil? And we discussed this as well. If we don't have a shared language of understanding what the good is, then we can't confirm or verify somebody's good. In other words, we need to know what good is in order to verify that God is good. And if you don't have a conception of good, then how do we know God is good? That's one point. The other point is, let's hypothetically assume that God is good. What is that? Ontologically makes sense. It has to have a meaning. And someone might say, goodness is that which is just, goodness is that which is compassionate, benevolent, charitable, altruistic. Then it makes sense. But in order to ground these things in God, you have to say that something about God makes these things, charity, benevolence, good. What is that thing? What is God's goodness, right? But when you say that, when you make that trying to allocate goodness to God, and trying to say that God's goodness makes charity good, and not the other way around, that charity is good, and that's what makes God good, right? Charity in itself is good, and that's what makes God good. Benevolence itself is good, and that's what makes God good. But instead, what the divine command theorists want to say is that God is what makes benevolence good or charity good. They get it the wrong way around. By doing that, they are pretty much saying something about God makes charity good, and that's God's goodness. But what is goodness?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What is goodness? What is it? What is it? And if you
force them, they have from goodness from badness, or not so.
That's not the exact point that these papers are trying to make. But what I'm trying to say is that that's one thing. That's one thing you can articulate it like that. But define goodness. See that?
Right.
What is goodness?
How would you even come to know what is goodness? Because you're stuck with that epistemic problem in a sense.
That's the other. That's a related issue. I won't say that's the meat of the issue that's been discussed here. Let me put it another way. Imagine this: somebody says, "Don't smoke. Smoking is bad. It's badness. Opposite of goodness. It's like smoking is, something can be good, something can be bad. Smoking is bad." Right. And then they ask, okay, why is it bad? Is it because it causes me lung cancer? No. Why is it bad? Is it because I might get emphysema? No. Why is it bad? Is it because it might give me mouth cancer? No. What about other issues, health related? No, it's none of that. Why is it bad? It's bad because it just is bad.
Right.
Then what are we talking about? Right. Smoking is bad. But then what do we mean by the word bad if it has no further meaning? When you say it's bad because it causes lung cancer, then you know bad, it has some association with human welfare or health. It has a meaning.
If I get you right, we are stuck with the what do you call semantical issues in a sense, basically. Is that
true? So Jeremy Cohen's in this paper says that goodness and badness then becomes undefined, unintelligible, incoherent, and a blank. It's like a blank. Right, it has no meaning. God's goodness has no meaning, right? And if the divine command theorist concedes that God is good because of charity, then he's accepted one of the horns of the Euthyphria dilemma, Plato's dilemma, which says that it's independent of God. They can't say that, because to defend a strong sense of divine command theory, they can't concede that goodness is something to do with benevolence or charity. It has to be the other way around. God is good, and that what God makes good. God makes charity good. But by saying that, it's going towards the arbitrary horn of the dilemma, because that goodness remains undefined, and we don't know in what we're talking about.
What goodness is, right?
Yeah,
it's the definitional problem, basically, or semantical
problem. Yeah. So hence why I don't think it can be grounded on God, because how can you can you make charity good by just grounding it on God? You know, if it was grounded on God, then why is charity good? Let's forget charity. Why couldn't malevolence be a property of God?
Why wouldn't suffocating a kid be good? You can argue for that as well, in a sense.
Yeah, exactly. And if the person starts to say, well, suffocating a kid is not benevolent behavior, then the reason something is good is because or bad is because of those properties, those Platonic ideals: benevolence, charity, altruism. Goodness is associated and connected to those properties, those Platonic ideals. That's what Plato revealed many thousands of years ago, before Qaiser even existed. Yeah, he debunked Plato before Qaiser before Qaiser could think, right? So. I can't see it being grounded on God.
Right. All right. Okay, let's remove this, stop the screen, present our very own screen, and let's do this. Okay. Move past.
नहीं करते। बड़ा आदमी तो कह सकता है कि मैं किसी का फायदा इसलिए करूंगा या मोरल जिंदगी से गुजारूंगा कि मेरी प्रोफेशन हो, कल मुझे भी कुछ ना कहे। एक बच्चा, 100 बच्चे, एक नहीं 100 बच्चे सबकी उम्र 19 साइंटिफिक एक्सपेरिमेंट में मदद कर रहे हैं, इनमें ये सेंस ही नहीं है कि मैं किसी की मदद करूंगा तो मेरी मदद प्योरली आउट ऑफ गुड विल वो कर रहे हैं, तो वो अपनी मोरालिटी को किस चीज में ग्राउंड करते हैं? दे हैव एब्सोल्युटली नो, एंड अगर आपका ये व्यू है कि उनके पास कोई रीजन नहीं है मोरल होने की, एंड आई एग्री विद दैट, अगर खुदा को निकाल दें।
I think this is exactly the point that Qaiser is making, that we were making earlier, right? The study shows some 100 kids or something, he's talking about 19 months old or whatever, right? Very young kids, and they're showing altruistic behavior. And so his contention is, it's like a loaded question. If these are not because of God, then what, right? Basically, that's the loaded question. And you can argue for it based on the intrinsic nature of humans, basically, right? Or human babies, basically. They're acting altruistic, basically based on their own genetic structure, basically. That's how their genes evolved, basically.
I mean, geographically isolated tribes in Papua Guinea, for example, who have not been exposed to Western media, Western forms of childhood conditioning, and so on. And they also exhibit certain basic moral behaviors, like compassion, rewarding people in the right circumstances, fairly treating others. And children act. And that's that. And these societies, they don't believe in a Islamic God. Especially,
they don't believe in an Islamic God. There are certain societies that don't believe in a God. I mean, there's an Amazonian tribe that doesn't believe in any supernatural, none whatsoever, and still they have these altruistic behaviors within themselves, basically, and they are somehow genetically encoded, and probably in different levels of evolution, different levels of empathy has been encoded into different genetic structures of different races, in a sense, basically. But that doesn't take out that basic component of altruism from our genes.
I mean, I can only reiterate what I said before. Reciprocal altruism, anybody wants to look it up, kin selection, twin studies on empathy, cross-cultural studies of isolated tribes, so the distinction between psychopaths and sociopaths. Steven Pinker is Enlightenment Now. Even Steven Pinker's The Blank Slate, he shows that certain instinctual behavior is hardwired into our physiologies and our brains. And he demonstrates empathy and compassion, acting rightly, and so on. These things can happen from a very, very young age, prior to precognitive, well, I won't say precognitive, but prior to any sort of learning process. Can be exhibited amongst children. Not to say that children can't be selfish as well, they can, but they also can engage altruistically. It's something that is improved upon as you get older, and you start reasoning more effectively, and so on. And there's a lot of literature from biology, psychology, sociology, anthropology, just debunking the idea that we can't act morally. And he seems to be debunking himself. I'm losing the sense of what he's talking about now, because now he's trying to say that there is instinctual moral behavior. But before he was saying people won't act morally, so he's trying to have his cake and eat. What is he doing?
I think he has shot himself on the foot, basically. He's confused about. I don't see the point of bringing this study right now, because that study supports atheism in a sense, basically. I mean, it doesn't support anybody per se. I'm saying it doesn't support particularly only his case. Basically, it supports anybody's case, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Yeah, I mean, alongside stuff like reciprocal altruism and kin selection and game theory, applications of genetic algorithms, we can see that natural selection would prefer pro-social behavior, and this is like almost a consensus now in evolutionary psychology literature, in biological literature, and psychological literature, and so on, that pro-social behavior, cooperative strategies work better for populations, and that gene or gene complexes, it's not like a single gene, maybe it's a set of genes, steer us towards altruism more. And that's why you're seeing these glimpses of it in children. Why? Because of our genetics. And it's completely consistent with evolution. In fact, it's an evolutionary prediction, right? Evolutionary prediction shows that through these computer simulations, when you have units that represent members of the population that transmit DNA down the genetic lineage, their children who adopt non-cooperative behaviors, the genes for non-cooperative behaviors, are more likely to die before they reproduce, or not reproduce. On the other hand, the children, the descendants who inherit the gene for cooperative behavior are more likely to survive. Yeah, and there's something called evolutionary equilibrium state stabilities, or I forgot what it's called. Evolutionary evolution would try to basically reach an equilibrium by filtering out disadvantageous genes and selecting advantageous genes, for example. And it reaches an equilibrium where cooperative strategies are maximized and non-cooperative strategies are minimized. And you can do it through game theory. You can put non-cooperative strategies amongst a population of these members of the society, and they tend to come off less well off, right? When they're not cooperating. But when they are cooperating, they tend to come off better off. Now, here's the thing about this: the cooperative strategy is not consciously thought of, right? And Peter Singer makes this distinction that the genetics for cooperative behavior, the gene itself is configured in a way to make us feel compassionate with no strings attached. Right? In these gene algorithms, you can show this as well. You can disguise compassion for fake compassion. Right? And the gene for fake compassion is outcompeted by the gene for the real compassion. You see that? It's amazing. It's an offense to reason that people don't know this. You know, it's amazing. Like the gene for fake compassion, imitating compassion, pretending to be compassionate. Because you may say, okay, if cooperative strategies work, then why wouldn't the genes just make us feign an expression of cooperation when really we're just doing it so that we can, be better off. Because if I scratch your back, you will scratch my back.
Right,
You repay the favor, and we work better together.
right.
Well, the gene for fake compassion is less distributed amongst the population than real compassion, because real compassion works out better.
Right.
Yeah, and you might want to look into that, because I'm not an evolutionary scientist. I can't explain it to that level of detail, but you want to read some papers into that, explaining this to utmost precision and detail, substantiating all of this. And this is like the bread and butter for these fields. We know this. So it's no surprise that children, therefore, have this blueprint for compassion. It's predicted by evolution. And that's the amazing prediction as well. We look at the gene algorithm and go, all right, it seems as though no matter what, the strategy that is favored by natural selection is compassionate, cooperative behavior. Then in the natural world, we should expect some degree of cooperative behavior. And we see this widely distributed in pretty much every species, more so amongst apes, more so amongst us. And the prediction is basically fulfilled. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, just one thing I wanted to point out, Madin, that Qaiser Bhai has some understanding of evolutionary science. I'm not quite sure whether he has studied it or something, but I think he's going to talk about that. But not quite sure that's whether convincing or not. We will see.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, did I stop you in between your thoughts, or?
No. I think I've said a lot, so that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on then. Okay.
We have no reason. And that's why we have moral truths. We don't have conventions, or we don't have personal opinions when it comes to morality. अच्छा, ये तो होगी फिलोसॉफिकल बातें. अब जो कुरान और ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी है, क्या हमें कुरान में ये एविडेंस मिलता है कि जो मोरालिटी है ये आपके अंदर नहीं बल्कि एक हायर सिस्टम है जिसने आपसे सब्सक्राइब किया हुआ है? सूरह शम्स में अल्लाह ताला ने के आखिरी हिस्से में अल्लाह ताला ने इसको बड़े जबरदस्त तरीके से बयान किया कि अल्लाह ताला ने कसम उठाई नफ्स की, जहां पे इसका तर्जुमा यहाँ पे सोल किया गया है, और उसको ठीक ठाक बनाने वाले की, और फिर उस पे सही और गलत ये उस पर नाजल किया गया, इंस्टॉल किया गया, बताया गया कि सही क्या है और गलत क्या है. और फिर कामयाब लोग वो होते हैं जो सही सोचों के पीछे जाते हैं, और नाकाम लोग वो होते हैं जो गलत सोचों के पीछे जाते हैं. वो चीज़ जो अपने ह्यूमन एक्सपीरियंस से फिलोसॉफिकल मेरिट्स पे चलते हुए हम देखते हैं कि मोरालिटी को एक एक्सटर्नल एजेंसी खुदा की जात नहीं ग्राउंड किया जा सकता है. कुरान हमें एग्जैक्टली वही चीज़ बता रहा है सही क्या. फिर उस भाई में अल्लाह ताला मिलता है कि जो मोरालिटी है ये आपके अंदर नहीं बल्कि एक हायर सिस्टम है जिसने आपसे सब्सक्राइब किया हुआ है. सूरह शम्स में अल्लाह ताला ने के आखिरी हिस्से में अल्लाह ताला ने इसको बड़े जबरदस्त तरीके से बयान किया कि अल्लाह ताला ने कसम उठाई नफ्स की, जहां पे इसका तर्जुमा यहाँ पे सोल किया गया है, और उसको ठीक ठाक बनाने वाले की, और फिर उस पे सही और गलत ये उस पर नाजल किया गया, इंस्टॉल किया गया, बताया गया कि सही क्या है और गलत क्या है. और फिर कामयाब लोग वो होते हैं जो सही सोचों के पीछे जाते हैं, और नाकाम लोग.
So the kind of I'm finding it hard to convey this point that he's making here, Qaiser. And he's making that point that this the higher morality can only be grounded in God's person, basically Allah's. And then this is when the soul is created, this is somehow installed. And I'm not quite sure what this he means by installed, right? Whether he means installed as in it's been inbuilt into humans once they are created, in which case basically you won't be able to differentiate between a morality that is natural to someone versus something that someone reads through a book and then comes to a conclusion that whether a particular action is good or bad, basically, right? So this if by installing he means that it is a part of our genetics or something, then that's exactly we were talking about for past 5-10 minutes or something like that, right? So it used to be made on our part from this.
I mean, he needs to show that. Then that just presupposes he will have a burden to show that theism is true, and then that God had instilled within us the moral senses. But that this debate isn't about that. He needs to seriously try and engage with. He has to look, just like we are not debating. Sorry, I say we because we are obviously skeptical here. We're skeptics and probably side with Harris. But although we have been critical of Harris as well, but just like Harris is assuming, or we can assume that if God exists, can morality be grounded on him? He has a burden to show that if God does not exist, can morality be explained through evolution or something like that? Now, if he's going down the line of saying that it's instilled within us and so on, he's trying to say that there's like a moral barometer that is fixed within us. He has to seriously engage with the other side and try and explain how that can't be explained through evolution, right? He has to presuppose, for example, there is no God, and then explain why evolution can't explain the existence of the barometer. Right. Just like we presuppose that there is a God and try to explain why morality can't be grounded on God using Plato's dilemma. You see that? Right. So he can't just bypass that obligation. I just don't see. So I don't know what he's saying by just saying that, oh, look, you have an instinct and this can be explained by God. He also has to debunk.
Right. He also needs to show whether, sorry.
No, yeah, exactly. No, you're right. He has also need to show that on a purely atheistic universe, you can't explain that. But if you can explain that, then you don't need.
He's bolstering our point basically, not our point, but his point, Harris's point, basically, that it is somehow instilled. I mean, Harris can very clearly make his case that it's this morality is a byproduct of evolution. Millions and millions of years. Evolution has brought in this kind of a compassion and empathy within which is kind of hard-coded into the genetic structure of humans, or in fact all the living beings, pretty much, in a sense. Not all the living beings, but at least in the animal kingdom, right?
Yeah, it's distributed at different levels in different ways, you know.
You can have a different varying degrees of compassion and empathy. I mean, you can't call a pathogen as being empathetic, because for it there's no empathy. Basically, all it's doing is just trying to grab whatever material to grow itself, basically.
Absolutely.
There's no level of empathy or compassion.
There's no empathy, but even the funny thing is, even they act cooperatively without obviously moral motivation. They don't have the psychology.
Right.
Cooperative strategies work better for them as well. Right. That's why bacteria operates in colonies. You know, it's just amazing that if he just looks into the science. If any theist wants to look into the science, it's just amazing how cooperative strategies has given us the rudimentary blueprint for at least the barometer and for moral instincts, moral senses, which is then built upon using reason. Historically, for example, in-group, out-group rivalries and hostilities and grievances and attacks and genocides were committed not necessarily because it's ingrained in us to do that, but more fundamentally because we do have the empathy to empathize with the out-group member, but because of facts that were presented to these tribes as, you know, that group is not human, that group is, hell-bent on taking your XYZ, that group is determined to do XYZ, just to contextualize it. For example, people thought blacks were inferior intelligence to the point of they not having a soul, they're not having feelings. And when you do that, even if you have empathy, it can be intellectualized through rational thinking. Here, obviously, false rational thinking, or maybe it was rational for the time, I don't know. But misleading thinking, of course, into thinking that blacks were genuinely subhuman. And therefore, it was easy for us to subjugate and dehumanize them. But then when we learned more, the human genome was uncoupled and examined. When we realized race science doesn't have much behind it, we start to get a better and better understanding that actually they're like people like us, and our empathy senses started. They were always there. They started to become applied and extended to these humans as well. Similarly, today we have the same with animal treatment in factory farms. Most people, when they see animals being slaughtered, they feel the empathy.
Right. Exactly.
Guilt overrides it. Yeah, hypocrisy overrides it when they're not looking at it. When they're eating, food from the
Bakri is coming, right? So I'm sure that's why you raised that point, right?
Yeah, my point is the moral senses are there inside of us, but then there are intellectual reasons that we might use negate it or control it. Like, for example, some people genuinely believe that a lot of animals don't feel pain. Genuinely, some people believe that animals have a lesser consciousness. And therefore, whilst the empathy senses go off, looking at, for example, a slaughter, they kind of rationalize it by saying, but they're not conscious. But when they learn that they are, and they can't further defend their consumption or their support for these industries, they do feel guilt. So this is a case of the expanding moral circle that Jonathan Haidt and people like Peter Singer have been talking about. And I would imagine it's already happening, in the next 100 to 200 years, there's going to be an increasing number of folks who are vegan, etc. And my point here is that basic empathy.
I would like to tell our listeners, whoever's going to listen, Madin, you're already a vegan, right? Or close to being a vegan. Is that
true? I cheat sometimes. I can be immoral. But
I think same is the case for me as well. I mean, I'm wannabe vegan. I'm a complete vegetarian as of now. But anyways, these are just a simple tidbit of information. By the way, I've shared the link, so whoever wants to join and talk to us can come and join. Madin, I hope you're okay. We said 1.5 hours.
Yeah. That's fine. Absolutely fine. Yeah. Let's just finish off his side of the argument. Yeah.
Let's see. Let's run this for another 5 minutes and see.
पीछे जाते हैं वो चीज जो अपने ह्यूमन एक्सपीरियंस से फिलोसॉफिकल मेरिट्स पे चलते हुए हम देखते हैं कि मोरालिटी को एक एक्सटर्नल एजेंसी खुदा की जात नहीं ग्राउंड किया जा सकता है। कुरान हमें एग्जैक्टली वही चीज बता रहा है। हारिस सुल्तान से मैं पूछना चाहूंगा कि हम जब इवोल्यूशन पे जाएंगे।
So he's saying that we can go through our rational faculties and all philosophical argument that morality can only be grounded on a supreme being, basically.
Yeah. Well,
हमें बता सकते हैं कि हमारे कुछ
he needs to know that the Phil Paper survey of philosophers show that most moral philosophers, experts, specialists in the area, they are deontologists. They are deontologists, right? And they don't ground it on God. They don't ground it on theism. They don't ground it on a supernatural being or a deity. They ground it on different philosophies, non-natural philosophies, natural philosophies. They think it's completely compatible with atheism, right? This is about 65% to 70% of philosophers who think this. They're moral objectivists, moral realists, and they don't think that. So I'm not sure why they've not come to the same conclusion as him. Yeah.
Right, Martin. Maybe he can object to your point by saying that you're appealing to authority, basically, in a sense.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're right. I'm just questioning. I'm saying that very, very intelligent because in this particular field, in philosophy, authority has some relevance, but I won't give it complete importance. It's not like evolution, where if you cite 99% of the biological community and they all believe in evolution, that actually substantiates to some extent your argument, right? So there's a difference between false authority, which is, I would say, a fallacious appeal to authority, and good authority. And if you use good authority, like experts and specialists, that's a good argument. People use it in court all the time. If all the experts say one thing, that's good. Is a well-substantiated way of documenting the efficacy of that theory. One of the reasons that we make decisions, for example, let's say in healthcare, is because the consensus, right, supports a particular view, and then it gets passed and licensed and regulated and it gets endorsed. I mean, that's not a fallacious appeal to authority.
Certain percentage basis, basically. You have, I think, double-blind testing is done. Probably something like upwards of 80% or something like that. If you have those number of passes, then you give it a go ahead, and then
But
it's a very high percentage, and I agree to your point that there is at some point when your consensus, not consensus, but percentages start to become lean you towards a certain proposition to be true, in a sense, right?
Mm.
Not in an objective sense, probably. I'm not quite sure if there is an objective sense, but to
Yeah,
make
yeah. Well, in respect to philosophy, philosophy is not such a field that you can quote or cite experts. It's not like science where authority holds much sway, right? However, that's why I'm not using it to that extent. I'm not saying since 65% or 70% of philosophers in moral philosophy believe in objective ethics, they're deontologists, they don't believe in God, and they believe they can have consistent objective morality. I'm not saying therefore they're right, and therefore we have objective morality. What I'm saying is we have to give it serious consideration and be genuinely cautious and curious at the same time why some of the most literate and smartest specialists in this area don't agree with Qaiser. It doesn't mean they're right, but it does give some weight, credence to look in that direction and go, all right, maybe I've gone wrong somewhere. Maybe I need to be skeptical. I'm giving that sort of argument. And furthermore, Qaiser said before, many philosophers agree with, that many philosophers think they can ground morality on God. And therefore, as a counter argument to that, I'm giving a more precise argument and say, actually, the vast majority of moral philosophers don't think that. They don't hold divine command. They think divine command theory is an outmoded, outdated, debunked philosophy. They go with rational, deontological, objective ethics that are not grounded on God. So if he was using it in that sort of tone, where lots of philosophers believe in God that can ground morality, then I can respond, well, lots of more philosophers, specialists, specific specialists, not one philosopher there, one philosopher here, not one philosopher from philosophy of religion who is not an ethics specialist, but specialist in ethics, and the vast majority of them think that there are objective ethics and with no relation or connection or association with God.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's run it for another. We have Cosmic Inquirer. Shall I take him in?
Yeah, go for it.
Hey, Cosmic Inquirer, welcome.
Hey guys,
how are you, mate?
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay.
Hello, how you
I
doing?
won't take up. I'm doing good, Martin. Big fan both of you guys. Of both of you guys. I won't take up too much of your time. So I just like to provide a bit of context. You guys mentioned that morality in children young enough to not be able to reason is evidence of evolution, right? Not really evidence, but evolution provides one possible way with which we can explain their altruistic behavior. I'm not sure if you know this. Qaiser does not believe in evolution. He actively opposed 1.5 years ago. He actively opposes the idea of evolution, both as a concept and as a means of explaining something. So that's what, and he's in this particular slides that we are about to go over. He does mention evolution once, but you're going to see that it's going to be a very disappointing, simplistic kind of representation of evolution by natural selection. But yeah, great job, guys. I don't think I have much else to add. I just wanted to come on and
no, thank you for pointing that out. We didn't notice that. Does he go on to say that in detail later? Is that what you're saying?
I think he has just one slide somewhere. I think it's yet to come. I don't think you guys have covered it yet. But he does have a particular slide on evolution being the explanation for morality, and then he I think just has a simple definition, and then he has a very simple, maybe too naive kind of rebuttal to the idea. I don't think Harris pushes him on this either. But yeah, that's he actually planned to make a series debunking evolution. He promised his viewers he'd be doing this month and a half ago. I think he's made 20 videos since then, but I'm still waiting the series that he promised.
Right.
I
think he promised that he'll make something on evolution, and he thinks that evolution is completely bunk, basically, and nobody in the Cosmic has left, I think. Okay. So I think he's Qaiser.
Well, Cosmic, I don't know if you meant to leave then, but we appreciate your contribution, and we hope to hear from you again. But thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Cosmic, keep dropping by. Yeah, I mean, and I would hope that you stay for longer next time. I think you just probably you were in a hurry for something, but hope you come back later on. Yeah, Mahaden, I was talking about he's completely opposed to Qaiser Bhai is completely opposed to evolution, basically, and he had a debate with another atheist. What's his name? Ghalib Kamal. He's again another guy from the subcontinent, basically from Pakistan, and so they had a debate regarding evolution, and that debate is probably on Qaiser Ahmed Raja's channel or probably on Ghalib Kamal's channel. I'm not quite sure which channel, but there should be one. So maybe that's one debate. I think we'll have a pass on it, but that's his point of view is basically he doesn't believe in Qaiser Ahmed Raja doesn't believe in evolution at all. He believes probably in microevolution, but he does not believe in macroevolution.
Okay.
Yeah, just let me read this Cosmic's
Yeah.
comment. Yeah, guys, it's a bit late here, and I'm too sleepy to make very insightful additions at the moment. But yes, someday I'll try to stick around for longer. Yes, Cosmic, thank you very much, and sleep tight. Talk to you later.
Yeah. Talk to you later. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we also, I mean, Harris doesn't also believe in God, but he can still make a contribution by assessing the case for God and whether you can reconcile a morality with God, ground it on God, just like philosophers critique divine command theory. Well, by similar application, then Qaiser has to also, critique the case for evolution instinct theory, let's say call it, yeah?
Right.
And right? We're giving the benefit of the doubt. We're not discussing whether God is true here. The debate is not discussing God is true here. Harris is not discussing whether God is true here. We're just discussing whether, the theistic case for morality, etc. Similarly, he should also engage with evolution and evolutionary literature, and then try and show that even then morality, even if we assume evolution is true, we can't explain or something like that. Although that might fall into a little bit of a problem, because if he starts assuming evolution true, you can probably just assume evolutionary instincts, moral instincts is true as well. But my point is, we give him the benefit of the doubt. We don't ask him to prove God. We're trying to find out whether or not it can be grounded on God. Right? And similarly, he needs to find out whether our ethical barometer can be grounded in our evolutionary history. I don't know what he would say about that. Maybe he'll just say, I deny evolution altogether, but then you have to make, then he has to make the actual case against evolution. And I think that's an uphill battle. I don't know why anybody in the 21st century, in this century, would even go to that direction, because I think the world has moved on. Most theists are coming towards evolution because it's just so firmly established,
overwhelmingly evidenced by backed up by data. So there's it's a very tough proposition for anybody trying to negate that fact. I'm not quite sure how one would be able to do it and still live in the 21st century. Tough job being Islamist, basically.
Yeah, because evolution is everywhere now. I mean, you read an article, you read something, everything links back to evolution, because that's our creation story, right? That's the real creation story. And therefore, everybody's fascinated by it. Journalists, whether you're talking about cooking, whether you're talking about car manufacturing, whether you're talking about marketing, whether you're talking about combat, everything is linked to evolution somehow, because it's our creation story, right? And it goes back 4.6 billion years, and how do you even make an assault on that case? You have to have a very idiosyncratic philosophy of science.
I mean, there are a few scientists still in that camp, basically on his side, on Qaiser's side, basically. Michael Behe is one, James Tour is one, right? I mean,
intelligent design community.
There is a community of intelligent design proponents basically, and they are on his side. Maybe there are some, they have, so their case is basically built on the science's inability to find enough probably fossils, and even in the genetic records and all those molecular biology and all those things. So you can say that, okay, there are certain questions still to be answered. I think basically I remember once I was talking to him, or I was on his stream, and he talked about tetrapods basically. And tetrapods, he said, appeared 370 earlier. Time was 375 million years back, and then they found some tetrapod fossils in 395 million years back. And then the point was that tectonic transition happened around 375. And so the question arose basically, how do you still find tetrapods 20 million years before that, basically? And the very simple answer to that question is, why can't they have coexisted for 20, 30, 40 million years before, even before the tectonic walked out of oceans towards the land, basically? And these are very minor kind of
they're missing the pixel for the big picture. Sorry, they're looking at the pixel, missing the big picture. I mean, the evidence for evolution is cross corroborated through multiple various fields, and I know a lot of atheists say stuff like that, but they can't substantiate it really on a verbal level. I really like talking about the case for evolution because I find it very, very interwoven and interconnected, and you can talk about it in Bayesian terms, in probabilistic terms, and explain exactly that the likelihood of these things falling in this particular way in this particular theory is very low. Unless, for example, there was an evolutionary mechanism, and actually explain it. So I've been very interested in thinking about evolution in a very philosophy of biology type of sense, and talking about it in a way we can actually make a very strong case. But I think the scientists, apart from maybe Jerry Coyne, if I got his name right, who does engage, and Richard Dawkins, I think, who do make public engagements about evolution, I think they both, this is my opinion, might be a bit of hubris. I don't think they make the case as powerful as it can be. And if you talk about it in a different way, I think you can actually explain to somebody that how strong the evidence for evolution is. A lot of people make the mistake that that science has to be directly observable, when the vast majority of science is not directly observable. Anything when you talk about cosmology or
most of the science is inferential and observation based, and it's induction all the way, pretty much, in a sense.
It's inference based. But if everything had to be observational, then human history, human archaeology, human geography, geology, cosmology, astronomy, all of this will be completely rendered meaningless and invalid. But you have to get, not only that, your own history, your own biological family tree. I mean, that you don't observe your great grandparent or something. You don't observe these things, and I think if you remember, Hamza Zorsas made the argument that we don't need science because you can't confirm your great grandparent.
Right. I think that was like one of the heights of his argumentation prowess, basically.
And the astonishing thing about that is that no, that's completely wrong. Science, that's exactly what science does. I mean, how can you say that? He just made the assumption that science is just direct, the observable stuff that you can see in a laboratory. That's not science. I mean, how do you call a field like geology a science if it just relied upon direct observational data that happens only in a laboratory? You can't, for example, see
in
continental drift.
In cases of biology or evolution and geology, and you're talking about time scales that are in the millions and billions, basically.
Yes.
Cosmology, even, right? You're talking about time scales which are far beyond our comprehension, in any sense of the word, basically. These are time scales we can't just comprehend. basically.
Yeah, I
There's no
mean,
way for us to.
yeah, absolutely, and almost all of the science relies on historical making inference about history.
Right.
We can't know, for example, how stars. We've never seen from beginning to end. Forget stars. I was going to say star formation. We've never seen the Earth go around the sun.
Right.
Yeah, we don't see a murder occur. We put the pieces together after seeing fingerprints, DNA, other circumstantial data, and we collate the data and corroborate it with other data and come to the conclusion that
the best
um,
inference is drawn basically on those evidences, right?
yeah. Go on.
I think I have Said Bhai, if you want to join for a quick 5-minute chat or something, please do come. I think that's your account. Say so in the comments. The Prophet Muhammad was not a. Okay. If you want to join, anybody else watching and wants to talk, please do join in the stream. I think we're gonna stop here.
Is he
Right?
done? Is Mr. Qaiser done with his?
Okay, we'll stop. Said bhai, just give us 1-2 minutes. We'll finish this and then we'll talk to you, right?
Yes, I don't go anywhere because we want to talk to you.
Okay, Said bhai.
Assalamu alaikum, bhai.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you doing, Said bhai?
I'm doing good, sir.
I have told you not to say sir, right? Just call me Philo, call Madin.
Okay.
Right? You're.
Saeed, you can call me Captain Madin. I'm joking.
Right. Okay, give us just 2-3 minutes, Said bhai.
Yeah. Well, what was your topic today?
So we are reviewing that debate between Qaiser Ahmed Raja and Harris Sultan, right? So we are just about finishing the opening statement by Qaiser Ahmed Raja, right?
Okay.
And I think we are running a little slow, but that's the nature of these debates, because you just don't want to miss any point. Basically, you just want to make sure that you respond to all the problems that you see within a particular argumentation, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in keeping that in mind, it sometimes happens that it just keeps going on and on because we have so many points to respond to, right? So let us just run through it for a few more minutes.
जेनेटिक म्यूटेशन ऐसी हुई हो जिससे मोरालिटी सामने आती हो या उसके अलावा कोई और चीजें होती हो, अगर उसकी एक्सप्लेनेशन खुदा की ज़ात से हटके कोई और है. सो दिस इज आवर क्लेम. फर्दरमोर कुरान में जो मोरल, मैं कुछ हवाले मैं आपको देता हूं, जो मैं हारिस सुल्तान साहब की तरह नहीं करूंगा कि एथिस्टिक मोरालिटी के दिफा में हूं, मैं उसका एक हवाला तक मैं दूं कि ये होती क्या है, वो क्यों अच्छी है. आई विल टेल यू कि इस्लाम में मोरालिटी के कुछ जो तस्वुरात हैं वो क्या हैं, क्योंकि हमारे पास कम वक्त है, मैं बहुत ज्यादा वक्त उस पर नहीं ले सकता, तो कुछ मैं आपको एग्जांपल्स आपके साथ मैं शेयर कर रहा हूं. एंड हियर इट इज कि इस चीज से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि आप कैसी जिंदगी गुजारते हैं, क्या देख, नन ऑफ दैट मैटर्स. जो अल्लाह ताला के यहाँ है वो ये है कि आप अपनी आवाज़ों को धीमा रखें, तकब्बर ना करें, गुरूर ना करें. आप एक लोगों के साथ ज़िंदगी गुजार रहे हैं, एक इस प्लैनेट को लोगों के साथ शेयर कर रहे हैं, तो मोरालिटी के साथ चलें. अल्लाह ताला इसका हमें हुक्म देता है. फिर अल्लाह ताला हमें हुक्म देता है कि किसी के बेटे, किसी की दौलत उसके काम नहीं आएगी, बल्कि काम आएगा वो अच्छा दिल, एक साउंड हार्ट जो इंसान अल्लाह ताला के पास लेके जाएगा, जो कि एक अखलाकी ज़िंदगी से आता है. पैसे पूसे वहाँ पे काम नहीं आते. दैट सिंपली विल नॉट वर्क.
All right, Madin. So Qaiser bhai is pointing at a few verses that talk about how to live a moral life. Basically, money is not gonna be of any use. Nothing is gonna be of any use to you, but your good heart. And then you can read this on the screen, right? Can you?
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
The day whereon neither wealth nor sons will avail, but only he that brings to God a sound heart. Basically, right?
वहाँ पे अमेरिका वाला काम नहीं होता कि हम.
Well, the thing is, by virtue of, maybe virtue is the wrong word, the vice of creating this sort of celestial sort of government that enforces morality in a very kind of pragmatic, monetarial way, almost economical way, where there's reward and punishment involved. What's happening is that you are turning morality into a currency. You are turning money,
Right, exactly.
morality into a transaction, a money, a form of currency. Yes, you use your moral acts to gain points and so on in order to avoid pain and increase your pleasure in the afterlife. So,
right.
whilst it might be the case, sorry, go on.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yes, you can.
Inject some of my points. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is perfectly fine. I mean, you have to put all these commandments into a context, into a historical context, right? Where are these commands coming to? On what society are these commands coming to? And you have to put all that into perspective and see whether it's coming from some cosmic being, supreme being, or it's an invention of people of those times. And you'll see that, I mean, one of the things that in history is pretty clear, that Arab tribes in about mid 7th century started capturing huge territories, right? Spreading out from Saudi Arabia. They captured Yemen. They started capturing Egypt, North Africa, and they went all the way up to Andalus, right? Spain. They started spreading. They captured Byzantine territories. They started capturing Persian territories. So this is well documented, right? Now, why would all these commandments be given to the people of that community, right? Because they want. This is a warrior clan, basically. This is a warrior clan, and now you want to motivate that army, right? How would you do that? You have to bring a concept of God and who looks at your sound heart, basically, right? That's the only way you'll be able to give a kind of a grievance that they are suffering through for those who have the near and dear ones who have died in the wars, basically, for that army, for that empire, basically, right? This is exactly what Romans did, basically, earlier. And this is what exactly Arabs are doing, right? So I just want to kind of detach this argument from some of the philosophical takes to a historical perspective. But now back to a philosophical take, right? So sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're right. God is a very good motivator, and there's a lot of literature on this as well. That many things that we can't get away with in an individual context, in a communitarian context where God is used as a form of enforcement or a construct used. It may not be explicitly used as a construct, but for purpose of this conversation, I'm using it as a construct, but some sort of community-centered belief in God can be used by those in powerful positions to extract benefits for themselves and hinder the population, like political authorities, for example, have done that in the past historically. And we've got a lot of experiments done on this as well, where naturally speaking, human beings would want a fair society, etc. And you can find, for example, if you deprive somebody of some money, for example, I forgot what it's called now. I think it's something called in classical economics, for example, there's this psychological, you'd say, psychological experiment where people are told that if you engage in a particular way, you'll get X amount of money, right? But it will be distributed in a way where one person gets the most and the other person will get less, right?
Right.
And for fairness' sake, a lot of people don't want to do that, even though they'll be richer than before. So
right.
People would compromise that even though it doesn't, from a classical economical point of view, a rational person, agent, should do the deed. So they act towards a particular end, because there'll be one, even if it's £1 more, they'll be £1 more richer. So it might be something
they'll all be richer than they were before, but then it won't be fair, and so they decline.
Exactly. So classical economists were wrong. They thought in a very crude way that from the laboratory, a priori, that the human being, as long as a rational agent does a cost-benefit analysis, they'll find out, even if it's unfair, I'll be $1 richer than before. So this act, if I do, we'll both get £1,000, but one guy gets £999, and I will only get £1, right? And they thought the rational person would take that bet. I mean, it doesn't have to be like that. It could be like £20 that you'll get, and the other person will get something like 60. Yeah. But they thought the rational person would do that, and lots of rational people don't do that. And they found out it's because it's nothing to do with reason. It's more to do with our emotions. Emotional thinking kicks in because we get jealous, envy, adrenaline pumps through our veins, and it overrides our rational thinking, and it discourages these sort of transactions, etc.
Also the fairness factor, basically.
Yeah, the fairness, exactly. All that fairness component comes from those emotions as well, you know.
Right.
But they find that however, although it's applicable on an individual level, is not applicable on a communitarian level. Political authorities can get away with this sort of unfair bargains, and the populace won't do anything or do much. And some of the communities that get away with it the most are the ones who have used a divine arbiter as a negotiating stick. Yeah, that listen, peasants, you take this unfair bargain now, because don't worry, in the future, in the afterlife, you will be rewarded. You get it, and it creates that compliance and conformity. So these studies, these literature, I think Yuval Noah Harari is a famous sort of, people may have heard of him. He also talks about it in his book.
He's the Nobel Prize winner of economics, probably within the past 2-3 years or something like that.
Yuval Harari? No, he's a historian. He's a historian.
He's a historian. Okay, who's that Nobel Prize winner for? Okay, I might be confusing the name. I think I know. Japanese. Sounds like a Japanese name.
I think I know who you're talking about. I forgot his name. I've got his book somewhere hanging around. I know who you're talking about. I just forgot his name as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah. Go ahead.
You know, the Arabs, how they became a more successful warrior. How they became a successful warrior. You see, they defeated Iran, Persian Empire and Byzantine Empire. They defeated them. So how come these desert people, they never have any army to begin with? So how come they suddenly defeated this two empire? It's a big empire. So how come they, got power suddenly? Nobody care about these desert Arabs. So what's the main reason they became a so strong army? So
you wanna extend that question? You wanna add something to that question?
No. I want to explain to myself. Okay. The success of their army is I know what was that. You see, when in the Quran, if you read it, Allah offer those who fight, they will be shaheed. They will be martyred, and they will be lifted direct to the heaven. That was they became a brave, fearless soldier, and they begin when the other like Byzantine Empire, they do not have any concept. If they die, they will they go to heaven, Same with the Byzantine Persian Empire. They also do not have, they fight, but at that time people are still afraid to die. Today also Muslim are very brave fighter, brave warrior. Muslim are very brave warrior. Like Afghanistan, Taliban, they are very brave warrior. If they believe if they die, they go to heaven. But American are not like that. They're afraid of dying. They are not sure what will happen to them. So the concept, Arab became a brave because of this concept, and Quran provide lot of uh, surety of you will receive Jannah paradise, but Islam never came to become a empire. There was no concept of in Islam. If you read the Quran, you will know that fight those who fight you. This is the command of war. Fight. This is the command of war. Fight those who fight you, and Allah does not like transgressor. So this is the war declaration. Only when somebody fight you. But Muslim misuse their Islam. They invaded other countries. They were not fighting with them. Like Byzantine were not fighting. Now the Persian were fighting them. So they misuse Islam and they conquer these countries.
Said bhai, you're done?
Yes.
You're done? Okay, you made quite a few points basically, right? So one of the things, do you think they were warring because of defense? How do you defend and conquer as much as almost half of the known world? Can you point me to that?
I'm saying opposite
So
of that.
can
They
you
misuse
have a
Islam.
can you defend your territory and win almost half of the world?
No. They
He's saying that the Islamic empire expanded through misapplication of Islam. That's what you're trying to say.
misuse of the
Yeah.
Quran. Allah never intention to fight those who do not fight. So Byzantine and
Okay. So
Persian,
you're
they do
saying that
not
was a misuse,
attack.
right? So you agree to that fact. You agree to that fact, basically, right? That was a misuse, right?
Misuse, yes.
So the Arab armies were aggressors, and fought the wars they shouldn't have, right? Agreed.
Yes.
This same was done by Prophet Muhammad as well, right?
No. He only liberate his city.
Why do you have this different stance for him than Rashidun
He
Caliph?
he liberated his own town.
Hmm?
He liberated his own town.
No, but he also attacked Taif. He attacked other areas as well, right? He had almost
The,
almost like 80, 60 or 65 military raids on different
the,
tribes.
they were fighting. The pagan were fighting. The
No,
mushrik were
I
fighting.
mean
So he
some of them
fought.
were defensive.
He
Some of
never
them
go
were
to other
defensive.
territory to take other territory. He only go to the town he knows, the surrounding. They became a enemy, like a Taif. Taif was a enemy of the territory of enemy.
So how do you go from Medina to Taif? You know how far is
Because
Taif from Medina?
they wanted proper. You know the story of Taif, where they kick him out from that town,
Who kicked him out from which town?
the Taif.
Okay, you need to study. You need to be honest, and you need to study a little bit of history.
No. The Prophet Muhammad did not go to any other than his own surrounding.
Why? No, you are wrong.
Which territory he go other than Arab territory? Only surrounding.
Hunain. Hunain was when was Hunain fought?
No, I'm not aware of that. It's probably a surrounding territory, and
Surrounding, what do you
where
mean by surrounding?
they
I mean,
must have
even
fought
if,
him.
see, सईद भाई आप अपने आप को डिफेंड करने की कोशिश कर रहे हो. See,
Yes,
you try.
yeah, that's my business to defend my religion.
नहीं, पर मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि आपको ऑनेस्ट होना पड़ेगा, राइट? उसके लिए आप ये नहीं कह सकते
I'm
कि भाई
honest.
मैं
I told you.
मैं अगर मेरी नेबरिंग टेरिटरीज हैं तो मैं उसको जो अटैक करूंगा तो दैट्स अ फॉर्म ऑफ डिफेंस. दैट्स नॉट हाउ इट वर्क्स बेसिकली, राइट? See, if it's a neighboring territory, you're still going and attacking it to,
They were
subjugate it,
not
basically.
nation. You see, they were not nation. What you're talking
See,
about, they were not a
these are
nation.
all alibis you're resorting to, basically, right?
What was that?
These are all excuses you're making up, right?
No, no.
Yes, yes.
Tell me which
Have you
which
read
country
have
he
you
attacked? Which country
have
he
you
attacked other than
no countries?
surrounding
There were no
territory?
countries. There were tribes. There were
Yeah,
tribes.
that they were tribes. That's all.
There
They
were
were not
tribes,
a
right?
countries.
Right. So
And those
the tribe, the tribe of
fought him. Those tribe
the
also
tribe,
fought
the
him.
tribe of Banu Qurayza was attacked or not? Yes or no?
Yes, because they betrayed. They were put Prophet Muhammad into the dangerous of annihilation, or they break the treaty. So yeah,
See, these are all, these are all made up stories. You just go and read the whole thing, right? I mean, okay.
yeah. But I will tell you, the Muslim invaders. At that time, it was just like today. We have a superpower mentality, like Russia, America, like India want to be superpower, Chinese want to be super. At that time, empire was a mentality of the people. So Arab
Do you think?
also.
Said bhai, do you think America had a right to invade Afghanistan?
No, no.
America didn't have a right to, right?
Uh,
Why do you think so? Afghanistan was threatening the existence of America by, doing 9/11 and those kind of things, right? That was their excuse. Now you are giving the same excuse for attacking the tribe of Banu Qurayza, right?
no, no, no.
Right.
They
Exactly.
betray them.
Hmm?
They help the enemy of the uh, Prophet
Doesn't
army.
matter. Doesn't matter. You're trying to pick on smaller points. I'm saying, think about the
No,
bigger.
what supposed to do? They betray them. So what they're supposed to do? Let them leave, attack another one.
And you go and kill 800 or
Yeah,
so Indians.
because they
Exactly.
became
That's how you
dangerous
do it.
too. They
Huh?
became a dangerous. You can't just let an enemy get away with
So,
first
so,
time
so you
they
so you
betray
believe
them.
you believe in preemptive strike, right?
No, that was not a free empty strike. They betray. They committed crime.
So they betrayed, and on betrayal, just go and obliterate a whole tribe, right?
No, they are less than 1,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to say they killed only less
Yeah,
than
but
thousand
what's
people,
supposed
right?
to do? What's supposed to do? They already had betrayed them and supported the enemy. What's supposed to do? If they let them live like that,
You're from
they
India,
will
right?
come and attack.
Said bhai, you're from India, right?
Yes,
Okay. You know what happened in 1971 when there was a war between India and Pakistan?
yes, yes.
How many soldiers were there as captive of war in India? Pakistani soldiers were captive of war.
Yeah, maybe 70,000 or something like that.
96, roughly 96,000 to 100,000, right?
Uh,
Right. What did
yeah,
should India have killed all those?
if India feel they will come back they should be killed them.
Okay, India. What did India do?
No, look, brother. At that, the Prophet went.
No, I'm saying you're saying
No,
what should have done. You asked me a question. I'm trying to answer your question. You go back home, close your eyes before you sleep, think through these things, right? Think properly
no, no,
through
no.
and very honestly. Think
Yes.
through all these problems and see what is the right
Look,
way. I mean, because you're so obsessed with that one solution, and that's been instilled in your psyche for so
So,
long
let
that
me,
you just
yeah.
can't see any other solution.
Every
Nadim,
army
you were saying
of the
something.
world, every army of the world kill.
Saeed, I've not spoken in a while, so let me
Look,
issue
the
something.
American slaughtered the Taliban. Didn't they slaughter? Didn't they
Saeed,
slaughter the Iraqi people
Said
and
bhai,
the military?
hold on for a second.
Wipe out? Didn't they wipe out the Iraqi army, Saddam army?
Said bhai, just hold on for a minute. Mahadin wants to
Yeah.
speak.
So since I've just been listening and so on, so let me just outline a few things then, right? So the last thing that you said there, Saeed, is the idea that if other armies can do it, why can't we do it, right? And that's a horrible way to think. Reasoning being because we don't think of ideal moral principles or how to act morally based on how others act, right? If my neighbor is a murderer, do I have the right to therefore become a murderer? If my neighbor is a rapist, does that mean rape is correct? If for example, stealing is happening, in society, I can say you have stolen, Saeed. Does that make stealing correct? Of course not.
But
So
we are talking about
hold on,
war.
Saeed, hold on. So the point is, you can't make a comparison. Yeah, you can't make a comparison with other people and say that these behaviors are tolerated here or these behaviors are occurring here, therefore it's right. To defend them, in theory, the moral principle is not dependent on anybody's behavior. You can't say he does it, therefore it's okay. That's not how we do it, morality. When it comes to war, right? I can think of many different type of ethical principles that are better and far superior to adjudicate, control, regulate morality during wartime. For example, and there's lots of principle developed through international law, the Geneva Conventions, United Nations Charter, etc., coming to help us. For example, if there is like a humanitarian crisis, somebody has betrayed you, somebody's done that, we do proportionate strikes. A proportionate strike only where it's necessary. That is, that you have to go and attack militarily, yeah, as per international law, right? And it has to be proportionate, meaning that you can only justify the killing of a large population of people if, on balance, you can show that there was a imminent strike that's going to occur, or because there was some outweighing factor that can enable you to go and kill everybody. On the other hand, if you can stop the crisis with less intrusive means, for example, if I can just kill the individual mercenaries or individual belligerents, I can control the situation, put them in prison, repatriate them, and I got rid of the threat, then you're not warranted to go around killing everybody. At that point, it'll become a war crime, a crime against humanity.
Like
right?
Osama bin Laden.
Saeed, stop. I've not finished. So, a crime against humanity would be illegal, and this is why, right? When America does these things, it is against international law. We're not defending America. When America invaded Iraq, it was an illegal infringement on a sovereign nation. And when you, on very poor evidence, for example, weapons of mass destruction, go and invade another country and you kill many people on thin evidence, that was disproportionate.
Illegal invasion, right?
Yeah, it was an illegal invasion. And there's multiple cases of illegal invasions. Russia's doing it today, and there's multiple. Nobody's defending it within the lens of international law. But you, however, are saying if you find a problem, you can eliminate all the people, even though you can stop it or prevent the problem with lesser means. Meaning, and it's basic. It's called proportionality. If there's 100 people, 10 people acting bad, you resolve the problem by preventing those 10 people from continuing acting bad. This might mean capturing them, stopping them, putting them to trial, jailing them. If you need to kill them because that's the only thing you can do to stop lethal harm to yourself, kill them. But that's it, just that 10 people. It doesn't justify the 90 other people in that community, because that when you kill these other people, then it's like a war crime, and so on.
So you mean Osama bin Laden should have been killed, but not to attack the Afghanistan? Is that what you're saying?
Say that again, sorry?
No, you saying the America should have killed the Osama bin Laden, but not attack the Afghanistan?
What I'm saying here is that when a country invades another nation and it does it by going beyond what is necessary to stop the perpetrators, right? And then kills more people than necessary, that is wrong. So it depends if you apply it. I don't know the exact facts about Afghanistan, Osama bin Laden. We think it was probably wrong. Yeah, probably wrong to go into Afghanistan.
Okay.
How about these are not analogous? Wait. These are not analogous situations. The reason that it was wrong to go into Afghanistan is because of evidence, poor evidence, right?
Right.
So let's not
the right.
How about the Nazi? How about the Nazi? Killing Nazi was wrong.
Hold on. Said, answering your question. Hold on. So there is a right way to do it. There is a wrong way to do it, right? What America should have done, confided with the proper government of Afghanistan. The problem there was, and I'm not saying that what America did was right. Problem was there was no government that would support the case. At least if say America provided an evidence that Al-Qaeda was based in Afghanistan and was carrying out these attacks on the sovereignty of America, then they should have collaborated with the government of Afghanistan and then tried to capture these perpetrators of the crime, basically crime on humanity. That would have been the right way. The problem.
And Saeed, based on what you're saying, the oppression and systematic regime against the Uyghur population in China is completely justified. Based on what you're saying, Palestine being subjugated by Israeli oppressors is completely justified. Do you think that's the case? Do you think the fact that there can be some strikes by a group of people within a country justifies the occupation, control, and subjugation of the entire group of people?
Yeah.
Don't defend Palestine. Don't defend the Uyghur population in China, because based on your principle, that's completely correct.
No, brother. Your side have been massacre the Iraqi and Afghanistan, and you also destroy the Nazi Germany, Hitler. It's not you just try to capture the Hitler. And,
this is not our side. No. That's not what do you mean your side? It's not our side. It's not my side.
No, whatever is the west side.
What are you even talking about? Whose side? What side do you mean? Who were they?
No. You
Not
see, the world always follow the policy of slaughtering, killing. That's already.
Listen, Saeed. In terms of Germany was German. Adolf Hitler actually did colonize and go to different countries and control. He had an army doing that, and therefore it might have justified a military aggression to that level. That's a different story. That's not the same thing as militias, tiny militias or guerrilla groups within a country that can be stopped with less means. Look, no, you're going against the listen, Saeed, you're going against the principle of self-defense. The self-defense principle is the following, right? If you come to me with a knife, I can come to you with a knife or something like that, or a gun. If you come to softly hit me, I don't get to take your life. I get to hit you with less aggression. I'm justified to hit you with less aggression to stop you, but I don't get to kill you because I did not face immediate threat to my life. If a child comes now, listen, if a child comes now, and he is lightly slapping me, I further don't have that much of a right to hit with extreme violence I get to push, maybe I can push the child away, but I can't kick him in the face because that level of force from a child is soft. That's called proportionality, right? It is proportional or symmetrical, or, fight force with equal force that is necessary. If you can use less force, then do that. That's not how it kind of works, roughly speaking, ethically, right? So that is what I mean by self-defense. And I don't think you can justify, just through a bit of betrayal or breaking of a treaty, going and colonizing and killing thousands of people. Yeah, you can't.
Let me give you an example.
Unless, do you agree with Israel occupying Palestine? Do you agree? Yes or no?
Forget about Israel.
This is actually more relevant. Do you agree with Israel occupying Palestine? You should do. It's completely fine.
No. Listen, you are a country. You are fighting with some other country, okay? And the third country. Listen.
Saeed, you need to answer the question. No. You need to answer the question. Is it okay for Israel occupying Palestine?
We will wipe them out. We will wipe them out if they do anything harm to them. We will wipe them out, regardless, sooner or later. So we'll forget about that.
Right. So why this inconsistency in your this thing, right? So you're considering one occupation, one of an attack as an attack, but the other one you are not considering to be bad. Why is that inconsistency in your thought process?
No. Listen.
Why this hypocrisy?
Listen, we have a Prophet Muhammad have a fight with the other country, Meccan, and the Jew. They supported, while we have Prophet Muhammad have a treaty with the Jew, they supported the Meccan people between fight Prophet Muhammad.
Forget about Meccan people. Why was the Battle of Hunayn fought? Because
you're going something else.
It was asked of them to surrender.
I'm trying to explain to you something, and you are taking something else.
And that's why, right?
No. Look, that was justified because they were supporting the enemy. So it's justified. If the Prophet Muhammad let them go, they could bring army with the mushrik, and they will fight. So it's better to kill them out. So that's the only better solution, because Prophet Muhammad just can't let them go.
Sorry, what were you saying?
But Prophet Muhammad has to kill those Jews. Okay, because if he let them go, then they will come with now it became a total enemy of the Prophet. So they will come with the Quraysh and fight with the Prophet. So he has to kill them before this happened.
All right, that's so you have two different barometers for two different things, right? That's not quite it has to be. You're missing your consistency basically, right?
No, I'm not.
You are. You just calm down. You think through it. Then in one case you are justifying killing in be it Banu Qurayza, be it in Badr, be it in Hunayn, or whatever, right? Whatever the rates are, right? You're also condemning the occupation of Egypt, Libya, Morocco, and Spain, right?
Why I don't understand that.
आप जो इजिप्ट में जो रेड हुई थी, राइट, जो आगे जो अरब आर्मीज ने जो लैंड्स
that's after Prophet,
राइट, आप उसको कंडेम कर रहे हो. फिर आप ये दूसरे जो रेड्स हुए हैं ये आसपास के जो इलाकों में, उसको नहीं कंडेम कर रहे हो. आप इसके बारे में आराम से सोचना जरा तसल्ली बख्श तरीके से, ठीक है। आज की अपन स्ट्रीम यही खत्म करते हैं सईद भाई, अपन अगली बार बात करेंगे, है ना।
ओके ओके,
ठीक है, बाकी चलिए, है ना। गुड टू
जी
हैव यू,
जी,
गुड टू टॉक
शुक्रिया
टू यू।
आप मेरे को स्ट्रीम में लेने का।
अरे नो प्रॉब्लम, एनी टाइम, यू आर ऑलवेज वेलकम। बट व्हेन वी टॉक, you sometimes if you think through those ideas, maybe read all the battles that were fought between 610 to 632, right? You know
Yeah.
how many battles were fought between 610 to 632, right?
यस यस,
कितनी लड़ी गई थी?
मैं समझता हूँ 10 15 20 कुछ होंगे, मैं समझता हूँ।
करीब 100 के आसपास है ना।
मैं नहीं समझता 100 है वो।
नहीं, आप देखना, देखो छोटी मोटी स्कर्मिशेस भी हैं, राइट, उसमें बड़ी फाइट्स भी हैं, राइट। अब उनमें कोई कबीला है, उस पे अटैक हुआ है, कोई छोटा कबीला है, कुछ बड़ा कबीला है, कोई टाउनशिप है, जैसे ताइफ हो गया, हुनैन हो गया, राइट। ये सारी चीज़ें हैं, आपको देखना पड़ेगा, राइट। हिस्ट्री आपको खंगालनी पड़ेगी, ठीक है। और फिर आपको, जब आप हिस्ट्री पढ़ोगे तो आपको फिर अनबायस्ड होकर हिस्ट्री को पढ़ना पड़ेगा, राइट। अगर आप वैसा कर पाओगे, अगर आप सच्चाई जानना चाहते हो, ट्रुथ
देखो,
जानना।
इस्लाम कुरान में अल्लाह ऑलरेडी सेड, fight those who fight you. This is the principle है ये, fight war करने की, you know. You cannot attack innocent people who do not are fighting. There are many places Allah said, if they make peace, you make peace. So and Allah also said, you take revenge, but you do not go beyond revenge. Whatever they have harm you, you harm them, but you do not go then kill them, wipe them out. It's in the Quran, everything is there. A prophet never go against the Quran.
सईद भाई, आप आराम से सोचना, मैं जो सवाल आपको पूछूंगा, है ना, अब ये आखिरी सवाल पूछूंगा, इसको आप आराम से, यहाँ जवाब नहीं देना है, आप इसको सोचना आराम से जाके। आपको
Okay.
क्यों लगता है कि कुरान पहले आई है और फिर ये जो आर्मीज हैं उस कुरान को लेके आगे बढ़े हैं और फिर टेरिटरीज कैप्चर की हैं, जबकि अदर वे भी ट्रू हो सकता है कि ये अरब आर्मीज जो हैं इन्होंने स्प्रेड आउट होना शुरू किया, फिर जाके जो है वो कुरान जो है वो लिखी गई, राइट।
No,
ये भी पॉसिबिलिटी है ना,
you see,
पॉसिबिलिटी है कि नहीं? हाँ या नहीं?
Arab are very backward people. They cannot become this powerful without the Islam, without the
ये
Quran.
आपको हिस्ट्री कहाँ से मिलती है? ये आपको हिस्ट्री कहाँ से मिलती है? इंडिपेंडेंट मिलती है या
You see, defeating
इस्लामिक किताबों से मिलती है?
yeah, you see, defeating the two superpower at this time equal to America and the Russia, and defeating the two superpower is just impossible. There has to be a motivation for this Arab camel driver. They have no building, nothing over there, no literacy, anything. The
आप
strongest.
हिस्ट्री को थोड़ा ढंग से पढ़ो, आप हिस्ट्री पढ़ो। ये जो है, ये दोनों सुपर पावर्स बाइजेंटाइन और पर्शिया, ये दोनों आपस में एक दूसरे से लड़के ऑलरेडी खत्म हो चुकी थी, ऑलमोस्ट खत्म हो चुकी थी दोनों। इनकी जो है 25 साल तक इनकी आपस में इनफाइटिंग चलती रही, बाइजेंटाइन की और पर्शिया की, और इतनी वीक हो चुकी थी ये दोनों एम्पायर्स कि इसके पास इनके पास कुछ नहीं बचा था। तो ये जब आप हिस्ट्री जब पढ़ोगे तो आप पढ़ना, दो तीन चीजें मैं आपको बता दे रहा हूँ। आप पढ़ना बैटल ऑफ यारमुक, ठीक है, बैटल ऑफ यारमुक पढ़ना, बैटल ऑफ कादेसिया पढ़ना, कादेसिया, ठीक है, ये पर्शिया के साथ हुई थी। बैटल ऑफ यारमुक जो है वो बाइजेंटाइन के साथ हुई थी। और बैटल ऑफ यारमुक के बाद बैटल ऑफ जेरूसलम हुई थी। जेरूसलम जब कैप्चर करने गई थी आर्मी, तो जेरूसलम जो है बड़े इजीली दे दिया था इन्होंने, जो जेरूसलम का जो पैट्रियार्क था उन्होंने सरेंडर कर लिया था बड़े इजीली। तो उनको लड़ने की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ी थी वहां पे, क्योंकि वो ऑलरेडी हारे ही हुए थे, उनके पास कोई आर्मी ही नहीं थी। समझ रहे हो? आप हिस्ट्री को पढ़ो, थोड़ा सारी चीजों को पढ़ो, और फिर धीरे 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 उस पे अपने नजरिया जो है आप रखना शुरू करो, राइट। और ईमानदारी से सोचो कि क्या हुआ उस टाइम पे, ठीक है।
ओके, ऑलराइट,
ठीक है, चलिए, ओके, है ना। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। स्ट्रीम क्लोज करते हैं, फिर आपसे बात होगी आराम से, है ना।
okay sir, ऑलराइट, थैंक यू।
चलिए, ऑलराइट, चलिए एवरीबॉडी, थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर लिसनिंग। इफ यू हैव एनी कमेंट्स, एनीथिंग, प्लीज लाइक सब्सक्राइब एंड शेयर जरूर करें। अगर अच्छी स्ट्रीम सुनना चाहते हैं, कुछ अच्छा कंटेंट सुनना चाहते हैं। सईद भाई, आपका भी बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। ठीक है, चलिए,
ऑलराइट, बाय बाय।